the order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law on March 19th, 2020. It seems so long ago. Since that time, unanticipated legal concerns relating to the open meeting law have been brought to our attention by the town clerk. Those concerns were supported by the Attorney General's office and confirmed by town council. In response to these concerns, the town will implement the following changes, which in no way prohibit any member of the public from participating in discussion and sharing information during a public meeting, and will ensure that all listeners and participants have equal access to this meeting. People that join the Zoom meeting are set so their microphones are muted. If you called in by phone, please use *6 to mute or unmute your phone. So that the meeting can occur in an orderly fashion, we ask that people who join keep their microphones on mute so background noises do not interfere with the meeting. If you wish to participate in the meeting, please use the raise your hand function available on Zoom, or if you called in by phone, dial *9, which will activate the raise your hand function. The meeting host will notify the chairperson of the raised hands, and the chairperson will determine whether and when to allow public comment. When called upon, participants should unmute, then state their name and address. After speaking, we request the participant return their microphone back to mute. Over to you.
Okay. I would like to have the minutes approved for the September 14th. If anybody has omissions or corrections they'd like to add.
I got some stuff from Kyle earlier.
Yep, I just sent some clerical stuff over to Amy. Yeah. Crazy.
Anybody else? If not, I'd like a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
I'll make a motion to accept the September 14th, 2020 meeting minutes as amended by Amy.
I second.
All those in favor? Who wants to do roll call? We haven't.
Carl.
Am I the lucky recipient? I guess I have to write names down again so I don't screw them up. All right.
We can change it around, you know.
No, that's fine. I'm getting so good at this.
Yep. You're a professional.
Carl Melberg. Aye. Sarah Seward.
Sarah Seward, aye.
James Pickard.
James Pickard, aye.
Julie Rupp.
Julie Rupp, aye.
Kyle Maxfield.
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Brian Crowley.
Brian Crowley, aye.
I believe that's it.
Julie, did you respond?
Yes.
Okay.
Did.
I guess it's all approved. Administrative discussion, point conservation restriction. Amy?
Pass it back over to Ray Lyons.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Point. We've been working on a conservation restriction for them. I'm waiting to see if Amy gets the plan up. If not, I will try to.
Do you see it?
I do. Thank you. So I'm before you tonight because a plan needs to be brought before the land court because this is registered land. And before we present to the land court to go through the engineering process, which takes anywhere from 6 to 24 months, we wanted to make sure that the commission and Natural Heritage were both on board with the plan that we would be putting forward to them. So we sent this to Ms. Deanne and to Amy last week for their comments. Amy suggested a few more bounds, which are on the western side of the property, and are here to hear if the commission has any comments before we send it off to land court.
And I did run this by town council, and they had no comments.
So it shows the 20 acres that were promised as part of the permits as being protected. The line is a little bit west of the retention basins, thinking that over time, those retention basins are going to need to be cleared and machinery is going to be working around them. So that will be done by moving the line a little bit westward. That means that the work there will be done under your regulatory authority rather than under the restriction. Everything else is pretty straightforward.
have you allowed enough room for the cleaning of the retention basin? I suppose your driveway comes in off of the main road.
Correct.
Is there enough room there?
The idea is that any work that needs to be done within the retention basins would happen outside of the conservation restriction area.
Without, like I say, without having to go through a whole process because you've got it restricted.
There's already an access road there with a gate in the fence, in the turtle provision fence. And that'll be outside the CR.
Okay. Is there any walking paths that are, I know that was discussed. I was just wondering if there's walking paths that go through the conservation area.
There are walking paths that go along the conservation area, and then as you get over to the Westford line, it goes through the conservation area. Over near the wastewater treatment plant between there and Westford, the trail passes over the conservation land. For the most part, the trails are along the edges of the conservation restriction area and they go up to it. So for example, there's one that starts behind Town Fair Tire and ends up roughly where it says Lot 2 on this plan. And then there's the one that goes along the top of the retention basin dikes that leads over to Westford.
Are these posted or anything so people would, are they well used so people would know where they are? These trails?
I don't think they're posted at present.
Is that something that should be considered or just to keep people in the right place?
I will run that by my clients. Sure,
Okay.
we'll think about that.
And the CR certainly allows for that, for signage. The one on the west side on the top is off of the Point's property. And theoretically, it's one that either Town Fair, I think it was Town Fair Tire, eventually has a commitment to improve the trail over there. It's in pretty tough shape and it doesn't go anywhere. So was never really heavily used to begin with.
Is that something at some point we'll need to provide a kiosk with a map or something somewhere? I'm just curious.
I agree. It's the one up on the west is way low on my list of places that need signage. And then, what if anything happens along here and into Westford? There will need to be probably a trail sign. I don't think it really needs a kiosk.
Okay. Those are my only concerns. Anybody else got anything?
So I think last time we talked a little bit about the Phragmites and the invasives that we're taking over. Has anything changed with respect to the ability to, address that at some point in the future?
I don't know. I'm working on the conservation restriction, Julie, but I will ask the engineer what's going on with the Phragmites.
Well, there's no proposal to treat them, but it is, remind me if I'm wrong, Ray, a provision in the CR that's an allowed use is control management of invasive species or vegetation management.
Every conservation restriction I write allows for the control of invasive species.
So it's allowed action. There's just no plans right now.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. That was my understanding, was that there wasn't a specific plan at this time to manage invasives. I just wanted to double check that the provision was there. So thank you.
Does the brook run through there someplace? I don't see it on the map.
It runs pretty much right through the middle of it.
Yeah.
Is there anything written in the CR that would allow, if ever needed, the town to go in with mats or anything, or to clean up a spill? We had one spill up on 495 a couple of years ago.
It's certainly an allowed use to clean up an environmental hazard within a conservation restriction area. The responsibility would first fall on the landowner, on my client, unless if they were at fault for it happening. If it was a third party, then the third party their insurance company would end up paying for that remediation.
This was an accident that happened out on 495, and it was a fuel oil spill that migrated down through the drainage.
In the lower left-hand corner is where that happened, and it was the trucking company that paid for that. And obviously they had to work with getting access and all that stuff. But
a conservation restriction could never prevent public safety officials from remedying a public safety hazard or environmental hazard.
Anybody else got any comments?
So this would be it. With this, we can get this down to, what do you say, land court, Ray, and at some point EEA will approve hopefully the CR, because they have looked at it.
Correct. Everything is lined up for this CR to be completed except getting the plan through land court. And land court, it's just a process, and their engineering department takes time because registered land, the title to it is guaranteed by the Commonwealth. So they take their time and they make sure they get it right. And I'm told that will take anywhere from 6 to 24 months. That's the general experience. But everything else is lined up. The commission has signed off on this. Heritage has signed off on this. DCS has given their written approval for it. So it'll come down to, once we have the survey, then I can complete the process and get the secretary's signature and put it on record. That should all be purely administrative because we basically get all the pre-approvals in place.
So we need to collect signatures from Conscom and Select Board.
Correct. But Conscom, Planning Board, and the Selectmen, Natural Heritage, and DCS have all voted yes.
Okay.
We're into the formalities.
So I think, do you need a vote tonight? Or probably should take a vote tonight to approve this?
That would be helpful. Sure.
Dated September 25th.
Somebody want to make a motion to approve this?
I'll make a motion to approve the conservation restriction prepared for the point dated September 25th, 2020.
And that would be for the plan for the conservation restriction.
For the plan for the conservation restriction.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
I second. Oh, go ahead.
Roll call. Carl, aye. Sarah Seward.
Sarah, aye.
Jim Pickard.
James Pickard, aye.
Julie Rupp.
Julie Rupp, aye.
Kyle Maxfield.
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
And Brian Crowley.
Brian Crowley, aye.
Unanimous.
Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it. We'll keep this rolling.
Okay. Request for a certificate of compliance, Bennett Orchard.
If I may, there is someone here from, I'm sorry, is it the Friends of the Library, who wanted to talk about a land use permit for the storybook. They did one in August, and they're planning on doing another one for basically Halloween. Katrina, did you want to just run through is that okay?
Yeah, I can definitely talk to it if it's okay. Is it okay to go now? I don't want to mess up your meeting order.
Go ahead.
Jim, is it okay if we stick her in there?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Go ahead. Thanks, Katrina.
No problem. Thank you for having us tonight. I know it's an addition to your schedule. Jim O'Neill's also on, and he contacted the Friends of the Library to see if we could collaborate and do another story walk. So last August, we held 2 story walks, one in Hartwell and one in Cloverdale. So a story walk is where you put picture books in frames and people can read them as they hike the trail. And so Jim proposed we do one October 31st to November 1st in connection with Halloween. So Friends of the Library would get the frames and put the picture book. Diane Haddock has a Halloween themed book in mind and ready to go if this is okay. And then Jim O'Neill mentioned that LCT was planning to ask people to do carved pumpkins, and they would have some candy at the end to distribute to anyone who participated. And last August, we in all of our advertisements about the story walks, we made sure people were new to wear masks and keep their distance and sanitize their hands. And if the parking lots were full, we asked them to return. And there was a large number of people who we saw, we got selfies from and things like that, people who participated. It was really fun. And so those walks were each one day. And the one feedback we got was that people wished they were up for longer. So this request is for a weekend. So October 31st is Saturday and November 1st would be Sunday. So we set it up on the Saturday and break it down on the Sunday.
Out of curiosity, how did the parking arrangements go the last time?
So we didn't stand there and monitor it, but I was in and out both days frequently, and there were lots of people enjoying it, but the parking lots did not overfill and go on to parking on the roads or anything like that. People were very good about just coming back if it was full. But actually, I don't think there was any overflow at any point. There was always at least one spot for people to park in.
Was this done sort of by reservation?
No, actually, we just left it open from, those walks were from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and let people choose their own schedule. And because people were coming and going throughout the day, they actually spread out over the course of the entire day.
Well, that's good.
And so part of the reason of extending it for 2 days is sun sets a little bit earlier, and also would extend that time frame for people to come and go.
Okay. Do you have any other notions of doing this at some later date too?
Oh, we would love to keep doing them. Diane Haddock at the library has multiple books in mind. She has the one for Halloween and also another one in mind already. So we would love to keep working with you guys to do these over a period of time. I'm not sure with the ground freezing, we could do it until the spring, but.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out whether we could approve 2 of them rather than just the one.
Well, this is a word for the year.
But I guess, Amy, do you have any opinion on that?
It's easy enough to do these individually.
Okay.
Even rather than having them come back in, as they can just tell me what they want to do, and we can just have a permanent extension for it. There's no fee or anything. So.
Okay.
So I assume we have to have a vote on this.
Yep.
Somebody want to make a motion to allow this to happen? Give out a permit?
Is it an extension of the permit or a new permit?
It'd just be a new land use permit.
Okay.
Well, it's an extension, but we have the whole new form, so it'd just be a new one. Make it easier.
Okay. So I'll make a motion to approve the land use permit for LCT in the Reuben Hoare Library for a story walk from October 31st to November 1st. Will there be a rain date, Katrina? Actually, now that I think of it.
Jim and I haven't put our heads together on that one. I'm open to it.
Okay.
If it looks bad, if you guys are open to us finding another date.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if we may want to span multiple weekends so you don't have to come back.
That's a good point. I didn't think of that.
Because the weather could be, I don't know that you want the books out there. I know they look, it looks like it's pretty weather tight, but.
No, there's an opening. So that's it was raining during one of the August walks. We actually put tape over them, but if people aren't going to be on the trail, if it's raining, then it would be great to do another weekend. Yeah. That would take some collaboration with Jim O'Neill and the LCT crew to figure out what weekend works for them.
But we
wouldn't have to do the pumpkins, I guess.
You guys could tonight just say with a rain dates of the weekend of November 6th or 13th.
Okay, those work for us, or for me anyway.
Okay.
We'll hear a second.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Kyle? Kyle?
Carl Melberg, aye. Sarah Seward.
Aye.
Jim Pickard.
Jim Pickard, aye.
Julie Rupp.
Julie Rupp, aye.
Kyle Maxfield,
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
and Brian Crowley.
Brian Crowley, aye.
That's unanimous.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
so how are we doing on time, Amy?
We might want to consider skipping the rest of that and going to the 50 Russell Street.
Okay. Public hearing, notice of intent, 50 Russell Street, U19-14-2, Mass DEP file number 204-915 for replacement failed septic system. Somebody want to speak to this? Good.
Kevin, your sound is, oh, yeah. Kevin, you're on mute. And your sound was terrible when you were on.
No.
Yes. Sound like Daffy Duck, sort of.
I thought he had some cool pet with him or something.
I
Me too.
Maybe disconnect and reconnect.
Any better?
Oh,
Yeah. How's that? Any better?
yes.
Okay, we'll try that for a little bit. Okay, so I'm Kevin Ritchie. I'm here on behalf of Janice Plummer, the owner of 50 Russell Street. She has a failed septic system. She's not moving. It's just been backing up into the house. The existing system is in the groundwater. So 50 Russell Street is across from the middle school. It's on the corner of Russell Street and Highland Ave, or Highland Lane. So we've got a wetland across the back property line. It was delineated by Matt Morrow last spring. We've got the 50-foot buffer and the 100-foot buffer. We tried to move it outside up into the front yard here. You can see the size of the system's rather large. We did use some advanced treatment. We're using a jet and a geomat both to reduce the size of it to make it fit the lot. Obviously, it doesn't fit in the side yard or the front yard. So we pulled it as close to the house as we possibly can. Here the system is 39 feet from the wetlands at its closest point. We've got some erosion control, some straw wattles and silt fence. And that'll be 26 feet off of the wetlands. The existing tank is here. It's got a cesspool here, and I believe it's probably been added on to and something out in the side yard as well. I've got one tree in the middle of the backyard that'll have to be removed, and then there are some shrubs down along the side which may need to be trimmed back. Got a couple of little clump of trees here and here as well that'll be removed. So again, we're using an advanced treatment jet tank. It's an aeration chamber, pump chamber to lift the sewage up and put it into the leach field here. The plan has been approved by the Board of Health. They've issued the permit, and so I'm here tonight to get your permission to move forward.
Is this going to be a raised system?
Yes, so it's going to come up about 3 feet at its worst point here in the back. The whole everything will be raised, but at its worst point, it'll come up about 3 feet.
Where's the groundwater in relation to that?
Yep, so these two test holes, we had the groundwater at 24 inches. So the system It's basically sitting on the ground surface and going up. It's a couple feet of, like I said, it'll be about 3 feet high in this area here. But we had groundwater at 2 feet in these holes.
When did you test it?
Oh, we did them. So we've been out twice. Initially, when we did these test holes here, it was too wet to actually run a percolation test. So we went back in July and tried to do a percolation test, and it was still too wet. Dug that test hole up in the percolation test up here. So we ended up having to use a sieve analysis to come up with a percolation rate.
So is the mound going to be high enough? I'm just thinking like July, I mean, we've been in
so there
drought conditions.
Yeah, no, so there was about 3 feet of fill on the ground surface. So the water table was in the fill, so we couldn't get down into down deep enough into the natural soil to actually run the perk test.
Okay, but so I guess my question is, if the groundwater is only 2 feet from the ground surface during a drought.
So right now it's below. Well, that was in the springtime in the wet season. That was in December.
I thought you said July.
Yeah, no. So we did the test holes in December and had the groundwater at 2 feet. Then we went back in July and it was down. It was down around 6 feet or so, but it was still, because of the fill, the amount of fill on the top, but we couldn't get deep enough into the ground to perk the natural soil.
Okay. So your design then is based on the more typical conditions than not.
Yeah, so it's based on the worst. It's based on the 2 feet that we saw in the springtime.
Okay.
The top right corner of this plan, Julie, you can't see it on that, but I pulled it up. It shows the cross sections of the test holes they did.
Yeah, so you can see these are the 2 test holes that are in the system. The first one we had 2.5 feet of fill, and then the very fine sand. Here we had roughly 2 feet of topsoil and subsoil. Then we had a sand, but we didn't have enough of it to be able to perk it. So we're back into the very fine sand. Again, that was down below 3 feet. So.
Okay.
So basically, this is an repair then, right?
Yes, this is an upgrade. They're not adding any flow. They can't do anything to the house. They're not moving. They're not selling it. They're just having a problem with the existing system.
Yeah, it looks like there's really not much choice on this site.
No, there's not a lot. I mean, the system, it's a big system, and there's not a lot of room. The only room is closer to the wetlands, so.
Right. Yep, there's not enough space on the other side of the garage.
There's not enough space. No, there's not enough over here.
Right.
Or even we thought maybe we could squeeze it in the front at one point, but it just doesn't fit.
Anybody else got any concerns? If not, I guess we're kind of to the point where we need to have a motion to allow it to happen.
And this would be both a waiver as well as a revocation.
Here. All right. Well, I'll make a motion to issue a waiver and an order of conditions for a septic replacement at 50 Russell Street. I don't have the file number in front of me. If anybody wants to.
204915.
With that file number.
Do I hear a second from anybody? Don't all speak up at once.
Second. Yep. Well, we're muted, so yep.
A roll call. Carl Melberg, aye. Sarah Seward.
Sarah, aye.
James Pickard.
James Pickard, aye.
Julie Rupp.
Julie Rupp, aye.
Kyle Maxfield.
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
And Brian Crowley.
Brian Crowley, aye.
It's unanimous.
Okay. The only question I got is when do they plan to do this?
I think they'd like to do it as soon as possible while it's still dry. So if they could, they'd probably start tomorrow, but they're probably a week or two out anyway.
Okay.
But Janice is extremely anxious to get it started and finished.
I think it may be good timing.
Yes, no.
Well, the sewage is backing up into the basement. It's certainly time.
Yep.
Good luck.
Yep.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Move on to the 8 o'clock one. Continued discussion, enforcement order 54, Bruce Street restoration plan. Somebody want to speak to this?
Hi, yeah, this is Chuck Karen, representing Mr. Kaplan.
Go ahead, Chuck.
Okay. Well, basically, I went out and delineated the wetlands as the commission had requested. Paid a lot of attention to what the soil conditions were. In the report I provided, I detailed the soil conditions on both sides of the wetland line at a couple locations. And it was pretty clear cut by soils, even in the areas that had been cleared. What I found was there were kind of 3 different levels of activity that had gone on out there. There's a significant area from about 50 feet in front of the garage back by the side of the house that's in the 50-foot buffer zone where there was a lot of understory removal, but I didn't see any sign of any significant tree cutting in that area. And we still have complete tree cover through that stretch. Then from that point forward towards Bruce Street, there was clearing in both the 50-foot buffer zone and into the BVW. That area on the left side of their driveway. It looked to me like there was somewhere around 3,000 square feet of disturbance in the wetland, and a little bit more than that in the 50-foot buffer zone along the driveway. In that area, not knowing exactly what it looked like before, but there wasn't much vegetation left. From way they've described the site to me, what it looked like before was that the a lot of what was cut, I think, was some invasive species, along with admittedly some native trees and shrubs as well. But from where they described it, what I can see for the remnants of the plants, the stumps, and what the surrounding undisturbed areas look like, it looks like it was a lot of invasive species, a lot of bittersweet and things like that in there. The good thing that happened or didn't happen here is there really wasn't a huge amount of soil disturbance. The vegetation was cut. A lot of it looks like it was chipped up and ground up right in place, but really didn't have any soil disturbance or any erosion resulting from it. So what I came up with for a sequence to get this area restored, if you can see on the my sketch plan, that brown shaded area in the back where we're in that 50-foot buffer zone, but not into the BVW, we have complete tree cover there. My approach there, I don't think really with that dense a shade, we're not going to get any plantings to survive. I think the native vegetation is going to pop up pretty quick from the stumps and seeds that are in the soil that are underneath there. So I'm not recommending any planting in that stretch. Thank you. That's good. I think the key in that area is to try to limit any of the invasive species from becoming reestablished for a couple of years, to try to get the native species to get a jump in getting that area revegetated in the understory. The kind of purple shaded area along the driveway is where we had the real more complete clearing in the 50-foot buffer zone. In that area, we're recommending planting that with some trees. And all through this, where I'm recommending planting, I'm really think of like restoration quality plants, not big landscape quality plants. But I have seen better luck with little 2 and 3 foot saplings that don't have a lot of root structure and leaf area as they get established, and they do pretty well under these conditions. So we're recommending planting that with the trees. The one thing I was worried about and specified in the plan in that area is a lot of that vegetation was cut. Seems to be in that area was ground up and then looks like it was driven over maybe. So it's really, you have this mat in places of wood chips and limbs and things that I think would really inhibit the growth of the planting. So any place the plant's going in, it was specified getting that woody debris cleared away from on the surface for a couple feet around them. Then the 2 blue shaded, or really 3 blue shaded areas of where the clearing took place into the BVW. In the darker blue areas, we really have pretty good canopy cover still from the trees in the adjacent undisturbed wetland, and from a couple of bigger maples that are right at the left front corner of the area. So in those areas, I don't think trying to get trees established under those is going to be too worthwhile. So in the dark blue shaded areas, were specified putting in a variety of wetland shrub species. I tried to pick some that have some good wildlife habitat value to them. And then in that square where it's lighter blue, in that area we're really out lacking the canopy cover as well. So in that block of specified, planting that with some wetland tree species. Then to go along with all of this, as I mentioned, in the rear, but also in these front areas, I think the key is keeping the invasives out of there as the plantings and the native vegetation gets established, which is coming back in the areas quite quickly. I was surprised from when I was out there, I think it was in July, I was out there a couple of weeks ago again, and there's some really extensive areas of things like swamp dogwood that have already popped up that has really only happened over the last several weeks. I think that's my summary.
What's your recommendation, Amy?
It looked like a very complete plan to me, and it does include some long-term maintenance, which you can see in there too. So the order would have the continuing condition that he can go in and do some pruning and cutting and removal of invasives as they continue to pop up.
Yeah, I would think they would have to keep on top of cutting the invasive stuff. That just keeps coming. Anybody else got any comments?
Yeah, I'm wondering, so just, I agree with, certainly controlling the invasives is something that we, want to, help allow. I'm just wondering if any education has taken place on which plants are the invasives. Just to make sure we don't, you know, the homeowner doesn't run into issues again because, you know, they thought they were doing something that was beneficial and, you know, didn't realize. So I guess I'd like to suggest that, you know, maybe Chuck, I don't know if you can provide a show and tell, you know, or if it's part of the maintenance, or, you know, I'm not really sure the best way to go about it. Or maybe the first time it's time to prune invasives, you know, we go look and clarify what's what. I'm not really sure how to do it, but I think what I'm getting at is that the reason we're here in the first place is because, you know, I think the homeowner thought they were doing something that they were, you know, would be, you know, beneficial, and like clearing out the area because it was overgrown. So I'm just looking to, you know, encourage the removal and control of invasives, you know, without getting us into a similar situation in the future.
But when I was out there with the homeowners, we did look. I did point out some of the invasive species that we'd want to focus on keeping out of there. Went over what they look like. You know, I don't recall every invasive species I can foresee being in there was visible at the time. So I guess any of those options you outlined would probably work to try to make sure nothing goes bad again.
Well, another option too is if the commission wants to do 2 or 3 years of annual reports that Chuck would do, he could also do those in concert with the owner.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we replant, there's a you know, follow-up time. So I think that makes sense. You know, and I'm not sure if the homeowner is aware, but a lot of times with the replanting, you get, you know, some plants don't make it. And so you have to, you know, you monitor the replanting.
Chuck, is this plants and stuff available at this point in time, or is this something that's going to have to wait until springtime?
I think they should be available. I recommended that they get them from New England wetland plants out in Amherst. They grow these plants under the right conditions to go into these types of sites. As far as I know, they should be available. Sometimes they run out of certain species, which I did leave a little bit flexible that, you know, we can pick and choose among other native species that are appropriate if we can't get one or another species. Because this would be a good time, other than that we're in the middle of a bad drought. This would normally be a good time to be putting them in. I'm not so sure if this fall is or not. But.
Well, we're supposed to get an inch of rain, Wednesday?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what's in the forecast.
Yeah, tomorrow night into Wednesday.
Yeah.
I hope we get it. Even though I just painted my deck.
What do you want to do, folks? Okay this and keep tabs on it for 3 years?
I think that sounds reasonable to me, Ms. Carl.
Right, I agree. Yep.
So you want a monitoring report at the end of the growing season?
Yeah.
Yes.
And that Mr. Karen be present during the installation?
Sure.
I think that makes sense since it's his plan.
Somebody want to make a motion to go forward? Let this go forward, please.
And I guess this needs a waiver too. I guess, I don't know. I suppose it does.
For restoration.
And working within 50.
Come on, folks. Somebody make a motion, please.
You can say so moved.
So moved.
There you go.
Here a second to it?
I'll second.
Carl?
A roll call. Carl Melberg, aye. Sarah Seward.
You there, Sarah?
Sarah Seward, aye. Yep.
James Pickard.
James Pickett, aye.
Julie Rupp.
Julie Rupp, aye.
Kyle Maxfield.
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Brian Crowley.
Brian Crowley, aye.
That's unanimous.
Okay. Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay. Request, I want to move on to our 8:15. Request for minor modification of Wellington Circle. 204-774. Revised to 3 houses. I'm kind of questioning where this is. Is this a jerky or a K thing?
No, this was also previously known as On the Rail Farm. It's off of Goldsmith. To the rear.
Yes.
To the rear of it is Cooper Farm, next to the horse farm.
Exactly, Jim. As you're on Goldsmith, the last driveway on the left to the farm, past the farm.
Somebody gonna speak to this?
So Steve or Ian, it's all yours.
Okay. Ian, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right.
Good evening, members of the commission. We did submit a plan showing how we've revised the size of the houses, and I actually have an updated plan which still shows the same houses, except on lot 5 we've moved the house further away from the wetlands. I'm not too sure how to get this plan to present it, though.
Hopefully at the bottom of your screen, it should say share screen, a little green.
Yeah, I see share screen.
So if you click on that.
Okay, here we go.
And then once it's up on your screen, you can click on it again on, there you go.
Okay, but I think maybe what I need to do, does that help?
A good start.
We'll get a picture here anyway.
Can you see what I'm looking at?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. What you can see there, what's colored in is what was originally submitted with this order of conditions. So what is cross-hatched is what we're proposing. And there are these 3 lots, lot 3, lot 4, lot 5. Lot 3, the house you can see is enlarged a little bit, but it's taken no closer to the wetlands except for where the deck is. There was no deck shown originally. It's still beyond the 50-foot setback. Lot 4, you can see the increase in the size of the house, and the distance to the wetlands originally was 71.9 feet. That was the closest distance that the proposed house was to the edge of the wetlands. Now it is 57 point something. Let me blow that up a bit. 57.1, I think. Yeah, 57.1. 71.9 was 57.1. So that's a little closer to the wetlands. And you can see the 50-foot setback there, 50-foot buffer. And on lot 5, we've pushed it further up, shortened the driveway. It was 78.7, now 92.3 feet away. So they sort of compensate one to the other, I suppose. The other question that came up was how this is going to affect the runoff. It does not increase the rate of runoff or volume of runoff above
existing conditions in any case at all. So it doesn't have, it doesn't increase it beyond what it currently is or before development. So I don't know if there are any more questions on that. I'm happy to try and answer them. And we have Steve Marsh also here tonight, I believe.
I'm here.
Let me just make one more comment. These houses that were originally put there were obviously not the final house. That was just a typical kind of house. So at that stage for subdivision approval, that was really what this plan was prepared for, was to show how the house would sit on the lots. And my assumption was that we would have to appear in front of conservation as we are tonight.
One of the reasons that we're moving these houses is to take advantage of the vistas and not have the houses overlooking one another when you're inside the houses. So that's one of the reasons why we've altered them a bit. Lot 5 we've altered a bit too, because we've been working with the bicycle people to make that path, and there's a substantial grade change on that side where lot 5 is. So we're trying to accommodate that too. So we've adjusted the house so we can site that path or bicycle path slash sidewalk down to get to the conservation land and tie into Cooper. So that's pretty much what precipitated us doing this at this point. I did speak to Amy earlier. We were going to try to do them one at a time, and it was suggested that, you know, we just come in. So this would always be a worst case scenario. I don't want to say that we wouldn't be coming back in, but we would never go any closer than where we are now. We haven't gone beyond the 50-foot. Lots 1 and 2, we really don't need to speak with the commission on because we're well beyond the 100-foot.
And let me make one more comment. The limit of disturbance has not changed.
So, Steve, just a quick question. Sarah Seward here. We've had some challenges in the last year with when we've had plans and developers or homeowners come in and say, you know, this is really it. But then when they have new ownership, all of a sudden it's like, well, I want to put in a deck or a different lawn. And so while I appreciate the statement that you just made, we'd like to try and have some assurances either through, it can be through a deed, some type of, you know, covenant that says that like, this is really the footprint. What are your thoughts on that?
You know, I've heard that about other developers, and that's one of the reasons why we came to the commission at this stage of the game and wanted to, you know, propose this. So what we would say is, you know, and I'm working, you know, for the developer here, we would not, we could put something in the deed that no further encroachments beyond this, you know, would be allowed as long as the commission's okay with that. It's our intent that if anything, we would be going further away from, you know, the 50-foot and no increase in size on, you know, lots 3, 4, and 5. You know, we're pretty confident. I'm actually going to spec build all of these, so I have a great deal of control of, you know, what's going on over there. So
okay, that's good to hear. For us, it comes into play with different decks and sheds and such.
Yeah.
Fences for dogs.
Yeah, fences. Good point, Julie.
Yeah. So, you know, I can't guarantee that they won't come in. Hopefully they do instead of just doing it. And then, but it's not our intent. Like I said, my intent is to build out 100% this entire project and not have it, you know, where people who are buyers are going to come in and say, oh, well, I want this, 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 and this. But I don't want to try to predict the future, because as soon as I say that, my first buyer is going to say, oh, could you go to the commission and ask them? You know, so But we could put something in there that, you know, no more structures to encroach any further than what's proposed on this plan. I wouldn't be opposed to that. You know, we know that we're not going beyond the 50 at all.
I can make one more comment, if you don't mind me interrupting here, but what you can't really see on this plan, but Amy, I know you've been out site several times, and you've seen where the sediment forebay is, which is behind these, specifically behind lots 4 and 5, the houses on lots 4 and 5, which any runoff from those lots, that runoff is collected by this forebay and fed to the infiltration basin, which is down here, past the septic. So these have no direct effect on the wetlands. The runoff from lots 1 and 2 do go somewhat directly to the wetlands, but they're outside the 100-foot buffer zone. The grading from lot 3 also is caught by the forebay to a large degree. There will be some going by because there's a cart path down here for access to the sediment forebay, the sediment basin, the infiltration basin, sorry.
All of the infrastructure is in on this particular project. So if you wanted to take a ride out, it pretty much speaks for itself. There are no, you know, structures there yet. So it might be a good time. And we do have lot 5 staked to its original location that's depicted on this plan. And you'll see how much further forward we are moving it towards the road. So I don't know if that's something the commission or any of the commission members want to do, is to take, I know Amy's been out there 100 times. But if you think that it's warranted to, you know, to do a quick inspection on it. But I think it speaks for itself, the plan does.
Steve, is there any chance you could move the house on lot 3 a little bit further up?
I would love to, actually. I think I'd like to twist it a little bit.
Lot 3, not lot 4.
No, on 3.
Yeah, okay.
On 3, you see how the deck is like really close to that 50-foot, Ian?
Yeah.
So, yeah, you know, and that's what I was saying, Jim. If we can, this is worst case. What I'd like to do is potentially, if we can do this, not come back in and say, oh, by the way, we're encroaching on the 50 or getting closer, but to take it away from, these are the house plans that we're going to be using for lots 3, 4, and 5. Those are not changing. But if I could push those further away or make minor adjustments so that they're further away from the 50-foot, I think that I'd love to get permission to do that too, so I don't have to come back to the commission. Again, the size of the dwellings are the same, and I would like to push that away, to be honest with you, Jim. You know, or at least twist it a bit so it's a little bit further away from that 50.
Right. So, Steve, I don't think that the commission would have a challenge with that. We just have to be very aware of what you just said, that the footprint itself, the size will not change. So a reduction away, either in size or a reduction further away from the wetlands, would be appealing.
Right. And that's exactly what I propose if the board would entertain that.
Okay. Amy, do you need to go out?
As Steve said, I haven't been there 100 times, but I've been out there. I have not seen the staked houses. I haven't been out since that happened. So it's up to you guys if you want to see it. I mean, it never really was a particularly wooded site, especially up at this end. It was the horse pasture. So they're not taking down trees no matter where they put these 3 lots.
But I have a question about lawns. So how much beyond the building envelope will a lawn go, like in the backyard of lot 3, for example?
That's a really good question. I think, you know, we would want to maximize it. You know, go to what's allowed in town for the lawn. You know, what we could do is, and I think this is already in the order of conditions, that we wouldn't be using, you know, fertilizers or anything like that. But I'd like to see a little bit of a yard lot. you'll see if you do come out, lot 5 has a really small backyard because we're really right, almost touching that detention basin.
The 4-bay.
Or the 4-bay.
I think the other issue here is if we look at the way it's colored, it goes up to the limit of disturbance, and what is going to be planted there is lawn. So that's as far as the lawn can possibly go, because behind there, it's not being disturbed.
Yeah, I'd really love it if some of the commission members could come out and just take a quick peek at it. It really kind of speaks for itself. There's quite a bit of fill there, and the disturbed areas versus the stuff that's the vegetation that's been left natural has been undisturbed.
So Steve, are you okay with commissioners just going in at their leisure instead of doing one schedule?
Absolutely. Yeah, go at your leisure.
Okay.
And if you have any concerns, you can just get in touch with Amy. Will get in touch with us, I guess.
Right. Okay. I think that's advisable.
Yeah, I haven't seen this. This was I think before my time, and I ride by there a lot to Shaker Lane and back, so I can certainly pop in this week.
So basically, you want a permission to move this to next meeting?
Well, I'd like to get a decision tonight because I'd like to submit my building plans to the building department, or at least my foundation plans.
I think where you're hearing, Steve, that the commissioners have not been out on site.
Okay.
That we'd probably hold till the next meeting.
Okay. So what are we looking? 2 weeks?
2 weeks, yeah.
Okay.
All right. 2 weeks is a holiday.
It's the 19th. It's a little bit long this time.
3 weeks. Because the 12th is a holiday.
Yeah.
I'll be fighting the weather too, and I want to get these in as quick as I can. All right. Well, could we do? How about lot 5? Could I do that one? Since I'm further away. And if you want to look at lots 3 and 4, and then I'll do lots 1, 2, and 5 while we're waiting for.
So, and you just want to get them submitted to building to get your permit to break ground, correct?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I'm not going to get permission to do it right away anyway. So, you know, okay. I'm sure he's going to take 2 or 3 weeks to review plans and what have you.
Okay. So I would feel comfortable with that. And then if they're with the understanding that if something should arise, that you would address it at the next meeting with lot 5.
Absolutely.
Would the commission want to see, I'm not clear if there's going to be any language in the deed. Would you want to see a draft? Have Steve take a crack at that?
Do we have any boilerplate for that, Amy? That I know we've requested it. Have we?
No, well, it's going to be backwards anyway. The other alternative is you have the attachment to the regulations, to the regulations about the notice of presence of areas subject to protection under the Littleton Wetlands Protection Bylaw that would be recorded. You've never used it yet, but that could also be adapted because that will be on the deed and would just alert the homeowner.
Okay.
Resources. It doesn't mean he can't put in a shed, but at least
it'll put him on notice. That'll be fine. Yeah. So do you want to send that to me and then?
Yeah, Steve, if you want to look at that, then I think we are concerned with the things such as sheds and fences. So sure. If you want to take a stab at that, that would be appreciated.
Okay, I'll take a look at that. If you can just send that to me, Amy, or what? Just tell me where it is. Is that in the bylaw?
On the regulations, at the end of the regulations.
Okay. All right, I'll take a look at it. If I can't find it, I'll call you.
Let me know. Okay.
All right, great. So in the meantime, I'll be allowed to at least submit my plans. If there's any concerns from the commission, then we'll just go on hold.
Okay.
Great. Okay.
We'll see you on the 19th.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Have a great evening. Thank you, Ian.
Thank you.
Thank you, too.
Okay. Public hearing, notice of intent, Air Road, Mass DEP file number 204-914, Mass DOT repair eroded gully. Somebody want to speak to that?
Yeah.
Hi there. My name is Susan MacArthur from BSC Group, and I'm here with Matt Farron from Mass DOT. And at the last hearing, the commission had asked if MassDOT could go out and take a look at the catch basin that's located across the road from the area that's eroding, that gully, as well as the catch basin that's located down the street near the development on the hillside. And so they did about two weeks ago, almost 2 weeks ago. They went out and they pulled the catch basin grates and looked in, and there are silt sacks in there. So, you know, that does restrict a little bit of flow and whatnot, but they were working. But so they cleaned them out. They did jet water through to see if, you know, if the pipe was functional. That does go underneath the roadway and outlets at that slope where the gully has formed. And they did find that it is coming out there. They just couldn't find the end of the pipe. So it was just kind of, you know, seeping. But they do plan on, that's for the one right across the street. There are silt sacks in the catch basin down the street as well, and were functional, and they cleaned that out too. But anyway, so when they do go to do the construction to fix that gully, they are going to dig back a little bit, see if they can locate the end of that pipe and, you know, see the condition of the pipe. Matt thinks it may not be crushed. It might be fine. It's just that it's buried. So they would dig it out and take a look at it, and then, you know, fix the slope as far as putting the riprap down around the pipe end, and also hand removing the sediment down in the wetland.
So would it be a possibility that they may have to extend the pipe just to get it out from underneath the edge of the road?
I don't believe so. I think the pipe is, I mean, they might have to replace it, but they're not going to extend it because then it would stick out of the slope, the hillside. So, right, Matt?
Yeah, that's correct. We probably, you know, just chase it back and see where it is, see the condition of it, and then we're going to end up, you know, whatever we take out, we're going to be putting reshaping the slope, I guess, so that we're pretty much in the same area as what we're taking out now.
I just kind of think the road has been gradually edged out over the pipe enough so as you may have to put 2 foot, 3 foot extension on the outlet just to get it out from underneath the edge of the road. I was just wanted to give you permission to do that. That's what I was leading up to.
Okay, I mean, if we had to, we could, it is a clay pipe, so we could get a fern coat and tie a piece of plastic pipe onto it just to get it back to where the slope is now.
It just seems like there's a possibility of that.
Perhaps.
Anybody else got any comments?
No, I mean, I feel like we've been kind of talking about this project for a while, the last 3 meetings that they've been here, and I'm not surprised to hear of the findings of the jetting, and it sounds like if there's a problem with the pipe, it will be replaced, and then, you know, I guess flush with the hillside, it sounds like, so you don't, you know, create extra erosion from the action of the water, you know, coming out. So I'm comfortable with the plan.
Anybody else?
No, I think it's good. I think the discovery has certainly helped. Okay.
How about the other catch basin? Is that all functional? Do you really need to rip that one?
Yeah, we're going to need to do a little bit of digging out over there just to see where the end of the pipe is. They were able to see water, you know, bleeding out of the slope,
but they couldn't locate the exact end of it.
So everybody okay with them going forward?
I am. Yep.
Yep, I am too.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
So I guess we need to have a vote for a notice of intent for Air Road.
So again, it would be the issue of waiver and the order of conditions.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Here a second.
Yep.
Okay.
Roll call. Cal Melberg, aye. Sarah Seward.
Aye.
James Pickard.
James Pickard, aye.
Julie Rupp.
Julie Rupp, aye.
Kyle Maxfield.
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
And Brian Crowley.
Brian Crowley, aye.
Not unanimous.
Okay. All set, folks.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Susan.
Good luck.
Good night.
Thank you. Amy, you said Healy Corner was not going to happen tonight?
Yeah, so I want to let Brian Beam know that Healy Corner is continued to October 19th.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, sorry.
And the resident, also the continued for Hager property, King Street?
Correct.
Correct. Yep. Amy, we want to go back to discussion and talk about Stoneyard?
Sure.
If you want to just give a little back, James, is that okay if we talk about Stoneyard where Amy and I went out the other day?
Go for it.
So this is the Stoneyard office location on Taylor near the train station. So the attorney called looking for basically a certificate of compliance for work never done. And when I looked at the aerial photographs, like, well, yeah, the work was done under an order of conditions. But it's hard to tell from the aerials. It did not appear to be totally in compliance, more like sort of halfway there. So we went back and forth, and Sarah and I met the owner's rep out there,
and Sue from Places has taken over, and so she has given them guidance. She's the one that actually alerted the John Croto to like, yeah, we need to like kind of look at this. Basins were overgrown. Some areas may have been encroached. And so where we thought there might be rain coming, we wanted to go ahead and give them some guidance to just stabilize the site, come on in, get some actual ground numbers, redefine or plot on a plan where the basins are in relationship to wetlands. So I believe that they will be coming in for the next meeting, but really the guidance of it was for us to go out, kind of tell them what to do and what not to do in the immediate future.
And I went back Friday afternoon, Sarah, and he was about 90% done. He was just pulling out that last gray pile up near the front.
Yeah. I feel comfortable. Sue's working on it with John Croto, and they made apologies and just some, I don't know, stones and dirt just got put in the wrong places. So, but we'll see once we have a clear depiction on the plan. That's it.
I believe that was color window for a while.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's in the way back. So.
Okay. So it sounds like you've got a handle on it for the time being.
Yep. Amy, other discussion items?
Yeah, so there's the request for certificate of compliance for Bennett Orchard, which has been on there for a little while, just waiting for the punch list, a third-party review to be done. They're going for the road acceptance. Everything is done on the punch list for the third-party review. They checked the basin sizes and all that. They did some last bit of mowing that I asked them to do. So I believe it's ready for certificate of compliance.
Okay.
If you feel so inclined.
I move that we order a certificate of compliance for Bennett's. And is there, I don't have the number in front of me. Amy, do you have the number?
204-745.
Okay.
Second.
Who was that, Kyle?
Roll call. Carl Melberg, aye.
Sarah Seward, aye.
James Pickard.
James Pickard, aye.
Julie Rupp.
Julie Rupp, aye.
Kyle Maxfield.
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Brian Crowley.
Brian Crowley, aye.
Unanimous.
Okay. I see we got a land use permit, Littleton Tree Hunt. Is that, we've already taken care of that? No.
No, we took care of the library one. This is for the tree hunt that they've done. I think this will be the 3rd or 4th year that they've done it for. So they just want to do it again. And Yo had just asked that they apply for a land use permit to do it, which they really didn't want to do. But I said it's really no work. So they weren't able to come tonight. So if you have any questions, I might be able to answer them for you, but it's the same as what they've done in the past. I think the only change they made is at Sarah Doublet, which is Conservation Trust land, at the request of the tribe.
Any comments from anybody? If not, can we move forward and issue it? Permit, please.
Yep. You need a motion?
I do.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Yes.
Okay. I move that we issue the land use permit for Littleton Tree Hunt.
Somebody want to second that?
Second, Carl.
Okay. Guess we got a roll call vote. Carl.
Carl Melberg, aye.
Sarah Seward, aye.
James Pickard.
James Pickard, aye.
Julie Rupp.
Julie Rupp, aye.
Kyle Maxfield.
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Brian Crowley.
Brian Crowley, aye.
Unanimous.
Amy, so these town warrant, what do you need us to do with the leash law and transfers? There's no action required for us on these?
I just wanted to let you know that those are going to be on the town warrant. I'm not sure if everybody heard this. The Board of Selectmen or the Select Board voted about, I don't know, hour and a half ago. So there is an agreement for the Brown property purchase at 1.2 million. And that will be warrant number 8, I believe. So first of all, there will be probably some signs going up, you know, the yard sign type things that SVT is doing. If any of you want to put one of those up on your lawn or know anybody else, I'm getting them on Wednesday, I believe. So just let me know and I can drop it off. Yeah, so the leash law is relatively straightforward. It just, the way it is written right now, excuse me, is the select board would be picking which properties would have what kind of leash law. The Durkee and Kate land transfer, I don't think I do have that. It's kind of weird. I don't know if you remember what it looked like. The Durkee land donation is pretty straightforward. The Kate land donation, this is, let's see, this is Fir, which was phase 1. And then this is Douglas, and that's phase 2. And then phase 4 is down here somewhere. So they'll be donating all this, pretty straightforward. But they're also donating this 6-foot strip of land. And so it was in kind of rough shape after construction and they weren't doing anything with it. So I actually was able to walk it with them on Friday, excuse me, and get them to remove some of the really rough wood chips, and they're just going to reseed it so that if we do need to make that into a trail, it's something we can make into a trail. The other piece is there's supposed to be an easement right here between, nope, right here for a bike trail. And it's really not graded out. It's like right outside this guy's basement door. So there's discussion now of whether they will put it in as Maurin believes the planning board permit read, or if they would leave a bond so that the town could put it in later. Either way, I'm sure that owner's not going to be happy, so I prefer they did it. But
wouldn't it make more sense to have it exit up near the where the arrow is, that short piece of property into the circle?
Down here?
No, up.
Oh, up there?
Yeah.
That's really steep slope. That's a really.
Okay.
And it's too late. You know, the easement is set.
I think they need to do it. I mean, if they opted to put a house too close, I feel as though they should deal with that. Yeah, so it went back and forth. And of course, Chris Finneroll said he didn't even know it was there, sort of. It is staked. There are property bounds out there. And as I had my preference, and yes, right now it goes nowhere. And, you know, as I told Chris, builders have to build sidewalks to nowhere all the time. Because eventually it is going to go somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
There's a trail that goes through Town Forest and Healy Corner. Yeah. So I mean, we can hold up the acceptance of the roads. Well, and that's part of, and Jim, maybe that's why Anna Houston was calling you. Yeah, I don't think we let them off the hook. Let them plow the roads for another winter. Yeah, and so, you know, the question is, well, should it be paved? Should it be gravel? It's the same old, what do you make your bike trail out of? Yeah, the highway department shouldn't be dealing with this. This is something that they should provide.
Can I ask a question? How long has it been since we put the culvert in from Farm Pond across? Has that been 2 years, 3 years? I can't remember.
I think we're working on 3 years.
Okay.
I thought it was an issue.
For my time, so yeah.
Yeah. It was an issue 3 years ago, but I don't think that culvert was installed. I would be surprised if maybe coming up on 2 years for the actual installation. It took a long time to get the information we needed.
I still have hesitations because I really want to make sure that road is going to work, especially with the wetlands and some of the other areas there. But having watched it collapse, you know. Yeah, so it's a little bit of the chicken and the egg. I asked Chris Stoddard if he cares that any of these road acceptances did not have their certificates of compliance yet. And he said he didn't care as long as it's not his problem to eventually get it. So these roads theoretically could be accepted without a certificate of compliance, because sometimes the certificate of compliance is going to take another year or two. They have. What if it doesn't ever come into compliance? Who's to say it's in compliance? Well, it would be up to you. For the certificate of compliance, it is in compliance as far as roadway standards are concerned and the drainage. They have a whole punch list that Green has gone through. They checked all the basins. This, let me think about this. Does not include phase 4, which is this end down here of Douglas, because they're still working on that. When was the last time we all walked through with their basins? It was last spring? Well, I forget. It was when I noticed the issue with, where am I? This basin right in here somewhere. You think a site walk is warranted?
Did you just do one with Marin on Friday? Did that happen, Amy?
Yeah, and that's when Planning Board, I don't believe, had any outlying issues. There were a couple things on the punch list, but nothing, you know, raise a invert or something. And my issues were that 6-foot strip and the condition of it, which they're taking care of, and what the heck is going to happen with this easement in here.
Yeah, that easement's going to be really messy, and it will never happen if we don't hold the developer, responsible for making it happen. And that was, one of the carrots for approval of the development. I don't think the town should be on the hook at all for dealing with the easement, developing a path way too close, apparently, to somebody's house. I feel very strongly that we shouldn't just say, oh, well, we'll, you know, just deal with it at some point, because it won't get dealt with.
I agree.
I think it should get put in.
Yeah.
So, and that was part of the other question is, because it was vague, what is put in? Paved? And I'm not clear, I'd have to check with Maureen who maintains that, if that becomes an HOA thing, or if that is part of the transfer. I think it could be part of the I don't know. I think the town probably would have to maintain it, if I'm guessing, but.
Yeah, once it's accepted, but I think the developer needs to go through the motions of, oh, okay, how do we grade this? What materials should we use? You know, and doing that whole, you know, approval process, discussion and approval process. I don't think it should be the highway department spending the time doing that. I really think it's squarely on the developer's shoulders to make it happen.
Yeah, and it would not be on highway if it worked out that the developer was not going to do it. They would have to put up a bond. And then we started arguing about, well, who's going to figure out what the price is going to be? It's a lot cheaper for them to do it now.
Yep.
And for the town to hire a consultant to do it later.
Yeah, no, that's crap.
And I don't want to have to go chasing.
No, that's a lot of work. Then you have to do oversight. You have to do contracting. No.
So what do we need to do then? Submit a letter to the selectmen asking for them to pull it?
I would raise the issue certainly with the planning board and see where they're planning on going with this. And maybe write a letter both, excuse me, to the planning board and copy it to the select board.
Right, that's what I was thinking. It would just be the same letter to both entities.
Yeah.
I think we need to go on record with that.
I agree, Sarah.
Jim, do you want to call Anna Houston back first and see why she called you?
Yeah, I'll take care of that.
And then I will draft up a letter, and it'd be good if someone can take a read through it. Anybody want to see that? Sarah and Julie, how's that? Can I volunteer you?
Yeah, it can help.
Okay, and relatively speaking, oh, well, it's not, because Cooper is also going for road acceptance. There is still a punch list on one of the basins.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, the issue, well, and again, so this is the difference between a road acceptance and a certificate of compliance. And I'll be ready for a certificate of compliance. But if there's any major outstanding issues like some of this stuff, we should figure it out. But the other issue over at Cooper is that lot on the corner, lots 12 and 13, which I need to go through the history again. And my mistake, I approved a building permit for a house on those two lots in the corner that were going to be vacant. Because I kept seeing all these, you know, the Dean Road, which is the affordable and the over 50 housing. I keep seeing those, so I thought that was just one of them, and I didn't look into it, so I approved it. So those two lots have been merged. They're putting in one house. And I told Matt, no, you approved it. We already went through it. And I think I talked to you, Sarah, and like, do you have any recollection of this? I went back through the agendas and the meeting minutes, and I didn't see it. I talked to Matt again this morning. He said, absolutely, you guys approved it. So Matt, you're going to have to prove it to me because there's nothing in the file.
Yeah, and we were on video at that point. So,
so
the notes would confirm that.
Yeah, I need to nail it down and go back and God help me look at the tapes again. So that'll be coming up too. That's really separate from road acceptance though. It was separate order.
It's the onus on them. They can certainly look through those.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, for road acceptance, you need functional basins. Those are integral.
Correct. 100%.
So there's no road acceptance at this town meeting for Cooper.
Well, Green has gone through the basins and the punch list, and they say everything is approved. I think the only problem, or if I remember, was vegetation.
Yeah, even vegetation alone makes it unstable.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure if they think they have a solution to that. If Cooper thinks they have a solution to that,
I'd be surprised.
Okay. So I mean, at this point, the basins are not complete.
Right.
So.
Well, they are complete. Well, except for the vegetation piece of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Which means they're not complete.
Amy, are those slopes on those detention basins in the back? Where I can't remember. Was it lot 15 or something? I'm just trying to remember. The ones
one where they put the house 15 feet close to the wetland and
kept sloughing in.
Yep.
It's all stable. It's all stable.
I haven't been down there in so long.
Do a site walk at some point. They did put in their side of the bike trail pathway, and it's got some erosion issues on the stone dust, which they're cleaning up. I have to go back and check on that.
I think we would have to do a site walk on those basins, really, to look at vegetation, because I do believe that vegetation is a key threshold that has to be met.
Well, if anybody wants to do a site walk, maybe with Green as the reviewing engineer on the punch list, it might be worthwhile.
Anybody want to do that? I can't do it this week, but I can do it next week. I think that some of the newer commissioners would be good to be out on that site to really see those basins.
It probably wouldn't happen this week anyway.
Okay.
All right, I'll talk tomorrow about that one too.
When is town meeting?
The 17th, Saturday, October 17th.
Okay.
So there is a little bit of time.
Yeah, okay.
I do think, getting back to the K. Durkee, that letter would have to go out quickly if Jim talks to
Anna.
Yeah,
I can start. What is tomorrow? I can start I can probably draft up the letter tomorrow, so at least we have it there, and see where things go.
Okay.
And then
what about Grove Road violations?
Grove Road, so I sent a letter to the landowner where the violations were occurring. I don't know if it's him or someone else doing it, to the PO box up in Vermont somewhere. And it came back that the PO has been closed, that the post office box has been closed with no forwarding address. I talked to the assessors and tax folks, and that's the address they had. So right now the property is flagged. If they ever come in to pay taxes or something, it'll be flagged. I gotta go. I still haven't had a chance to go back out there with a tape measure to see whose property that fort is on, if it's town property or private property. And I guess I can also, there's a truck parked out there, and put a note on the truck, which might not get me very far, but
Amy, is the truck registered?
I believe it is. There was a trailer out there which was not registered, and that was parked on the road. So I sicked the police on that one. The truck, I'm pretty sure it was registered.
I mean, what the police tracked down the ownership of it.
Yeah, and that truck is not parked on 8 Grove property, but it accesses through 8 Grove property, which is Sherry Gould's property. So I might be able to chase it down that way a little bit. Her tenant might know whose truck that is.
I've got one thing for discussion. It's got to do with Chestnut. I went down and around it, but it seems like the berm came up a little short down at the bottom near the retention area, but I'm not quite sure how much of it should have been bermed and what should have been left. But it seemed to me what I saw, there should have been a little more continuation of the berm.
Yeah, that's part of the punch list that that Green International is reviewing.
Okay.
What was required and what was built. I was supposed to meet Colby out there this morning about the mitigation site, and he didn't show. And there's someone just kind of graded a little bit at the end of that cul-de-sac near the basin, because it's raw earth, and then dumped a bunch of grass clippings.
That's what I'm talking about. It goes, but there's a strip beyond that. It seemed like it should have had a berm or something completed along that edge.
So I added that onto the punch list.
Okay, good. All right.
Or the only one, you know, Bennett Orchard, I think, is the only clear sailing road acceptance.
Okay.
And one other thing I wanted to add was that the folks, I don't know if you remember the site walk some of you did with 2628 Cricket, which is the old fallen down cabins, and they want to tear those down and put in one.
Yeah.
They did buy 30 crickets. They have all 3 of those little tiny lots.
Oh, that's good.
I just want to check. She wants to demo what's out there because it is a safety issue.
Can you just make sure that you really have photos?
And that's what I was going to say is I told her I wanted to check with you guys and make sure that she doesn't lose any grandfathering by taking those down before applying for a new one.
Yeah, honestly, I think she might if she takes them down before she applies.
I told her to check with zoning on that too for setbacks and everything.
I would think she'd need to come in with a design for whatever they wanted to build before they took that down.
Having been out there though, I mean, these buildings they're not blocked off. People can just walk in. They're a pretty serious safety hazard. You know, so someone could like walk in and fall through the floor type of thing. So I wonder if telling them to leave.
We go on record stating that we believe that it, you know, potentially could be a hazard, and that we, you know, recognize where the structures are at this time.
I think that's a good idea, Sarah, but I still think they should run it by the building inspector or have something as well. I don't disagree with you.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be a whole separate process. But she doesn't want to lose setbacks or whatever may or may not be pertinent on those lots.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a challenge. I can see why they would like to take those down. I wonder.
And it's not as if they have foundations that they can leave.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Like posts.
I was wondering if the change of where they bought the lot, if they'd be able to put a regular septic system in or a well or something. They're probably going to need to put a well in of some sort.
They'll need to put in a well, and I think no matter what, they're going to need to have a tight tank, I think is what they said.
Yeah.
Yep.
Even with the extra lot.
Yep.
Should that give them better access to their property, the first 2 lots anyway?
It's so steep, I don't know if that'll change much.
Oh, okay. Well,
should I tell them that they need to document what is there now?
Yes.
Very carefully on their existing conditions plan and with photos, and that they need to file perhaps within a year? 2 years?
I would think within a year.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, and if there's something that's not adequately documented, they're at risk for, you know, not being able to substantiate.
I'm hoping they have it all surveyed like it's on a plan.
Yeah,
they have
makes sense, Sarah. They can plot the house, plot the property, or existing foundations anyway.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if they have lot 40 surveyed, but they have the other 2 surveyed.
Okay.
All right, I will let her know.
Okay. Do we need to go to the Scott Road update?
Well, that's at 9:15. So, yeah, clock again on the meadow mowing and haying stuff. Does anybody care about? Let's start with the mowing thing or the hay licensing. I don't care. I don't know if I just keep this on here
Yeah, I mean,
on the agenda for discussion, or?
Yeah, just keep it there.
Okay, table it.
How are we doing time-wise, Amy?
It's 9:10. This isn't a public hearing or meeting, so you probably could go ahead.
Is somebody going to be there? Is somebody here to speak to it?
Matt is here. Matt Morrow.
You guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. Before I get started on that, Amy?
Yep.
The Grove Road situation you were talking about, I actually evaluated. I know the area you're talking about. I evaluated a parcel for another client of mine.
Yep.
That parcel you were looking at, when I looked up records for the surrounding lands, I actually have an address for somebody in Seattle, Washington. Don't know if you found that.
I don't know how you found that, but no, I don't.
I can send you, I'll send you the person's name and address that I have on my records when I did my record search.
Is that the one that's next to 8 Grove?
Well, the one that's next to 8 Grove, you've got 8 Grove, then there are 2 parcels owned by the client I represented, and then there was the one parcel that that fort you were talking about is on, which is like right near the town land.
Right.
It's that parcel. I have the name and address to Seattle, Washington.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was the first 2. The ones that abut 8 Grove was the one I was looking for.
Okay, I can give you that address too.
Okay, perfect.
Actually, there's another law firm out of Vermont that's actually representing the estate for those 2 parcels.
Okay.
And I can give you that contact information as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're very welcome. On 5 Scott, the areas have been completed grading. The surveyor's putting plans together. I went out, raked the seed in, and went back out actually and just threw a little extra seed over. Took about 3 pounds of seed to get it in thoroughly. So I should shortly have an as-built for you on the grading. And hopefully by your next meeting, I should be able to show you some pictures of growth, or at least growth starting.
Now, when did they perform their survey work?
Last week.
And they were able to at least see some real-time results that indicated they're back where they should be?
Yes. By the way, I'm having difficulty. Who was talking to me just then?
Sorry, that was Kyle.
Okay, Kyle. Thank you. I apologize.
So as of right now, everything's on track, right?
Everything is on track, yes. Hopefully the growth will go the way I'm anticipating. I mean, again, I always have extra seed in stock, and I'll just keep planting as the need arises.
Well, I hope that soil's where most of my cornfield soil is.
I'm sorry.
Dust storm.
Actually, the area is actually pretty decent as far as holding its moisture down because of the nature of the wetland, and it's right next to the pond. So with the rains coming in, hopefully that'll set everything that was raked in nicely. I mean, obviously, I'm going to be keeping an eye on it to make sure that there's no erosion events. If there are, I would let Amy know and have them automatically cleaned up. And if areas needed to be reseeded, I would make sure that's done. But I don't anticipate that happening either.
When's the next time you'll be out there, Matt?
Well, I'm going to wait till the surveyor gives me the plans, go out, take a look at it with the plans. I mean, I usually go out. I'm already out there this morning. I'd probably go out there again next week or later this week after the rain if we have a very heavy rain.
Okay.
They keep changing the forecast, so I'm not sure what to expect.
Yeah.
I hear you.
So we'll see Matt again at the next hearing, correct, Amy?
That sounds like it.
Yes.
No.
October 19th.
Okay. So, Matt, if you could send along the plans prior to the meeting for the next one, that would be great.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Amy, I will email you that information on both lots later.
Okay, thank you very much.
I also have a contact person from the law office on those other 2 lots you can deal with.
Send it along.
You got it.
Thank you.
All right. Good night, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Good night.
And I noticed that Ray Lyons popped back.
Sure.
Did you need something, Ray?
Maybe he just didn't leave.
Or he's got nothing better to do. All right, never mind.
All right. Amy, I have to sign off, so if you can mark me as departed at 9:15.
Okay.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
See you, Sarah.
Take care, Sarah.
Bye.
Well, unfortunately, we got like 10 minutes to kill here.
Well, I noticed that the Haven Road parking area this last weekend was getting a tremendous amount of use.
Good.
Which is kind of gratifying to me to see that it is being used.
And Aggregate put in the little parking lot on Boxborough Road. They donated all of the gravel and the labor.
Great.
Yep. And Highway did a little bit of cleanup near the entrance. And then Littleton Electric actually went in and chipped out huge piles of brush that we had cleared the weekend before, so we don't have to burn it. And they did a great job. There's not a twig left.
I also noticed up at the Harvard Road, they have the sign posted out front now.
Yes, those all.
Yeah, a few have been put up.
This year's anyway crop, they all got put in. Harvard Roads, Mill Hill, and Mary Shepherd. Those are all up. And Sarah Doublet, but that was the LCT's thing. So I think there's 3 or 4 more signs that'll probably try to get up next year.
The only question I got, it says Oak Hill, and I've always heard it pronounced as Oak Hill, not Oak Hill. It says on the sign.
You mean 2 words?
Yeah, I've always heard it as Oak Hill. Now, maybe it's just my pronunciation.
Yeah, I've always seen it as 2 words.
Okay. I was glad to see that up anyway. At least it designates the parking area.
So I think there's a Long Lake Park sign to go up, and we decide where that one goes. There's 2 or 3 options, and there's at least 1 more Oak Hill sign that can go up, and there's a couple options of where that can go.
So there's been nothing that's been gone forward on the one down at Reed Meadows. That CR.
I believe the CR has gotten through Sherry Gold, and is it sitting at Town Council now?
Oh.
But I got to double check that.
Okay.
And oh, there was something else going on. It's gone.
Anybody else got any observations made around the conservation land or anything you want to mention?
The Eagle Scout project put up all the benches is getting a lot of comments. People love finding those benches.
I suppose it's too soon to think they would be on an overlay of actual property maps where they might be. Is that something that sometime down the road?
I don't know if they'd ever end up on the map. They were not concreted in because she ran out of time. And those benches weigh a ton. So they're really not going to move, but they can move. So we figure we have them out there for a year or so, see if they're in the right place or good place, or if they should be moved around or something. So
isn't there some garden or something? One of the other Girl Scouts was doing some sort of a
pollinator, a native pollinator garden at Bumblebee. She did, I think, 3 little gardens in there.
Now the bench is somewhere near that, or
it kind of overlooks them. I don't know how the garden survived this drought. You know, I went in shortly after they were in, and they looked okay. I guess really by next year they'll be see how they do next year.
I suppose the girls will be coming in to get it signed off, won't they? Don't we have to sign off on them for them to get their badges?
I don't think they do. I haven't heard from them. They all were scrambling and off to college.
Yeah.
So if they need something, they know where to find us.
Yeah. Okay.
They did some amazing work.
Were they interested in putting any information on the bench, like it was her project or something? Because people ask about them all the time.
I asked her that, and she really didn't feel the need.
It's fun to hear all the speculation. People are thinking it's such and such neighbor put it out there, or this guy did it. Like everyone's noticing them. You know, it's kind of unfortunate she's not getting more credit. You know, or people can just look and be like, "Oh, Scouts, that's great." You know.
Yeah. It was put out on the Littleton trails, but you know that disappears after a while. But Jim,
it seems like you ought to have a little something that says the Eagle Scout Project or something on it. Just so people realize what it was.
Yep.
Kids don't do branding anymore. They can't burn a little signal something in there.
Oh, get at the old wood burner.
Yeah.
I love those things.
Of course, it's plastic wood anyway. So,
how are we doing for time? We still got another 10?
9:22.
I know what the other thing I was going to mention. 2 things actually. Sudbury Valley trustees will be coming in maybe October 19th. I'm not sure if they'll make that with the invasive species management plan for the Smith parcel. They've been doing a ton of research and outreach with the neighbors, which they are continuing, and hopefully will get things a little bit squared away with the neighbors before they come in. And at the same time, I got to put together, like I said, the notice of intent for the Brown property for that Phragmites treatment, so that hopefully they can get a mow in this winter. They wouldn't start until next year, but if they can get the mowing going this year, it'd be a big help.
Would you be afraid of by mowing it? And I don't know what else you're going to do. Spreading the seed head, making it even worse.
Yeah, Phragmites doesn't really go by the seed too much. And like I said, they think the optimal season for that would be in December, when it should all be dead.
So that stuff is a real challenge.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they've got at least a 3 to 5 year plan. The first 2 years would be covered by the grant, which is why I want to get it started, so we can use the money before the grant's over. And the cost goes down every year. I talked to Corey about whether or not Clean Lakes might be able to throw in a little bit of money, or maybe even CPA. So we'll see how that goes. But by year 3 or 4, it's like $1,000 or $2,000. So it's not big money, theoretically.
Hey, Amy, I have a question. There's something I was thinking about on and off. Do we, how often do we institute fines for our enforcement orders? Have we done it yet?
I don't think, not since I've been here, I don't think.
Just wondering if we should, I don't know if it would be something to agenda or if it's just under other discussion, but it seems like, you know, enforcement orders are an awful lot of work. If we're not, you know, we have a fine structure, you know, it just seems like if we're not utilizing it, you know, we should maybe talk about, just across the board implementation or something of that nature. But I just feel like enforcement orders are a ton of work. And
oh yeah. Yeah, I can certainly throw it on the agenda.
Yep. And it's particularly when, I attended the personnel board hearing, and they wanted to know all about what revenue we generate to justify getting Amy help. It seems like
that's not the point.
It's not, but it just seems like people, like there's an application fee because it's work. I just feel like maybe we should revisit that topic.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I can also see if town council has some boilerplate, maybe.
Yeah. I mean,
or suggestions. Yeah,
that would be helpful.
Because it does get confusing with the state regulations about what is and isn't allowed, and if it occurs every day, and how much you really want to add on to it. So.
Yep. No, I think that makes sense. I haven't, done any looking into it other than being aware we have a fine structure, and was wondering if we, just not being aware that we had ever used it. So.
We have started doing it in Acton, frankly, because there was one commission member who was going to follow through with it and remind us to do it. But it's a couple $100. It's
right.
Been small. It hasn't added up, but it makes a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just think we should talk about it, maybe see what town council thinks and revisit it.
Amy, has there been any more updates on the Corps of Engineers dredging project?
Well, Oxbow submitted their existing conditions evaluation of the area. Corey and I said thanks. We'll see you. I don't know when. I have not heard a thing.
All right.
Well, I got another comment. Directly across from the Hager property, between the horse farm and the Brothers Trail, I can remember when that was all open land. And it's only been probably within the last 10 to 15 years that has grown in because it wasn't maintained. And I guess my point being is if you don't keep stuff maintained, it gets grown up real quick. And it's just an example when it's right across the street from the Hager property.
Well, and to a degree that goes to the mowing BMPs that SVT did under the grant, especially so we can try to get highway to take on as much as they can.
Seems like it'd have to be built into their budget almost.
Exactly. Yeah. So they'll know what to expect year to year. But I think we're close enough to 9:30.
Okay. Public hearing request for amended order of conditions 151 Taylor, R10 14-0, Mass DEP file number 204 and 906. Is somebody going to speak to that?
Sure. My name's Todd Morey. I'm with Beals Associates. We are the engineer and permit coordinator for the 151 and 153 Taylor Street projects. This evening, I have a few people with me. I keep watching the list on the side to see who's popping in and out. But I have Brian Orr from Northbridge. We have Pat Mullane and Owen Hall from Northbridge as well. I also see Michael Kelleher from Amazon is on this, and I believe Dennis Goodare from BL Companies, which is one of the consultants for Amazon that's working on this project as well. So we have two things that we would like to present to you this evening. We have an amendment to 151 Taylor Street, which, as most of you probably know, is under construction. And then we have a new request for order of conditions, a new notice of intent that we filed for 153 Taylor Street, which is right behind it. And that's the reason that we're doing this is solely due to the fact that there is now a tenant for these projects, and there wasn't when we originally came through. So if it's okay with the commission, I do have a set of presentation slides for both of these that I'd like to share. It's all combined into one presentation, but it's kind of set up such that we get through 151 first, and then we can have discussion on that amendment request before we get into the meat of 153. So,
can I just say, Todd, before you do that, Jim, did you open both of these? Did you open the other?
I just open the first one. I can open the second one if you'd like.
Probably worth it.
They're both at 9:30. Notice of intent, 153 Taylor Street, R10 14-1, Mass D file number 204-9XX. Evidently, you haven't got a number for it. Demolition of existing office building and development of storage parking lot.
Yep, and that's correct. We haven't been assigned a number for that. So our office filed, I think, 3 other notices that same day, and none of those have numbers either. So I won't feel bad just yet. Maybe next time.
Maybe you want to be Mass DOT. They seem to get their number real fast.
Let's see. If I pop this into presentation mode, there we go. I'm trusting everybody can see that.
Just see you.
You just see me. Screen 2, share.
There you go. Let's start
with that. That one seems to have worked a little better. So the photograph you're looking at was actually taken 2 weeks ago. In the foreground closest to us is the 151 Taylor Street building under construction, as you can see, and in the background is the 153 Taylor Street property. Over on this side is the common driveway that serves the 2 Taylor Street, and this orientation is located right here. This is Monarch Drive, and way off in the background here, you can also see Route 2. It's a pretty large wetland complex that borders on Beaver Brook that is located in this area, and then there's a little bit more of it out in through here. There's also, if you recall, that small pocket wetland that's right in this vegetated area here. Just as a quick overview on how we got here, Northbridge Partners, who was the applicant on the original 151 Taylor Street, as well as the applicant here at 153, had gone through and started talking with various tenants to come to that spec building. They have reached a tentative agreement with Amazon Logistics to locate a last mile delivery proposal on 151 Taylor Street. What Amazon Logistics and the last mile delivery services are all about are the vans that deliver the final packages for to your homes that you see driving around. A lot of them now that you see are the blue vans with the Amazon logos on the side in various locations. The amended order of conditions that we're requesting for 151 Taylor Street will result in a site that looks a little like, oh, there we go. I'm going to go through the first one. This is what you had approved back in February of 2020 at 151 Taylor Street. We have a building with a 143,640 square foot footprint. At that time, we were also planning a mezzanine that would have gone in the back side of the building to bring the total square footage up to about 159,600. With parking along the east side of the building, an access drive that came off this private driveway that serves the 2 properties, and wrapped around to the back where we have loading in these areas here, as well as some additional parking in between the loading areas, and then wrapped through truck turnaround in this corner, and then a stormwater management facility that infiltrated up to and including the 100-year storm located in this spot here. Construction started on this building. They got quite a ways through before the realization that Amazon would be a prospective tenant here came along. And this is kind of what we've done for some modifications. The building footprint itself does not change at all. It stays identical. The location of this driveway where it connects stays the same. We've added another bay of parking on the east side of the building that pushes into this bank here. We've actually removed all the parking that had fronted on this access drive. We'll loop this access drive back out. We've reconfigured this back here, not through any alternate grading, but just through some alternate striping. So now the truck loading is only in this corner here. And then this will be for delivery van staging. Vans will actually enter the building, load up, and then exit the building and do this and make their way to their routes. The proposed stormwater management facility, which you'll see in a later slide, is actually well under construction, doesn't change at all. The main reason for that is we actually have a net reduction of 750 square feet of impervious area on this proposed layout. Where we got to that net reduction, you see on this slide, we have two different colors here. We have a series of orange areas as well as a series of blue areas. The orange areas are where we're actually adding impervious area, and the blue areas are where we're reducing it. The chart up in the upper left-hand corner shows that we're adding about 16,000 square feet in various areas, removing about 16,700 square feet. So we net 750 square foot reduction. And this, I just wanted to throw this photo in. Again, this was from 2 weeks ago, the same time that cover photo was taken. Just to give you an aerial photograph, I believe this was done with a drone, of what that infiltration basin looks like right now. The contractors that have been out there doing, both the general contractor, who's ARCO, as well as the site work contractor, Jay White, have been doing a pretty spectacular job for a construction site this size in just maintaining a neat construction site and making sure nothing gets away from them. So as you can see in this photograph of the basin, they've got this thing pretty well stabilized already. Amy had joined us for a site walk, maybe a month and a half ago now, I believe, and just took a look at some of the perimeter areas with us. And we've been pleasantly surprised with even in the dry conditions, with the amount of vegetation that's been able to grow, as well as just the general condition of the site. They've kept the dust down. There just hasn't seemed to have been any nuisances. The other thing that this photo points out pretty well is this double row of silt fence that you can see wrapping around. If you recall, this site was right next to a mapped habitat area for Blanding's turtles. So we worked with the folks at Natural Heritage to develop a turtle protection plan. That's been implemented. They did, in fact, one day, I believe it was back in mid-July, find turtle tracks going across the site. The contractor did actually find where that turtle was, and they picked them up, placed them outside of the barrier, and that's really been the only issue that we've had since then. So before I go down to 153, I think the request here is fairly simple, fairly straightforward. Back to those minor site changes. That's the extent of the site change right there. So if there's any questions that anybody might have, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Hey, Todd, I do have a question. So it's like the 7,300 square feet. It's like in the west corner.
Yep.
North is not quite up. So are you gonna need to clear more trees to get that? And then what does that do, like for snow storage? I think also moves a little closer to the wetlands, actually right where your pointer is.
So there is a little bit more concrete that's going to be placed right there. That area, before we started all the construction, was actually a grassed area. There will be some trees that'll be taken out of here. There's about I think about an 8 to 10 foot strip on this area here. Actually, where the trees are coming out is up here. What we had done is we graded this on that 2-to-1 slope. Same system that we used over in this area, as well as around this corner here. We put a fabric on the top of it to reduce the potential for erosion and promote some rapid grass growth in there. But it also minimizes the amount of cut that we have to go back up and through there. But this area here like I said, was grass back before we started all the other construction. We had originally planned to plant a couple of trees here. We're going to be planting those right here on this edge. So same number of trees. We're just going to push them back.
Okay.
And then, since somebody may ask, I want to point out also the other two areas where we are adding impervious to the buffer zone is this west side of the parking right here next to that pocket wetland. But this is actually elevation wise, this is about 15 feet lower in elevation than this wetland that sits up here. And then right here, there's a continuation of a sidewalk that comes along. Currently, there's a sidewalk that comes up 153 Taylor Street, and we're going to continue it along this very edge. We're not widening this road anymore. It's just it's a 5-foot sidewalk there. And then you can see the associated grading that goes along with it. No extra tree is going to be cut here. This side remains all the same. Where the basin is remains all the same. As I mentioned, there's another 8 or 10-foot strip right there. No additional tree cutting here, and this all stays the same. And these trees here, there were some evergreens right here are going to get replaced with new trees.
What kind of new trees?
I believe they're hardwoods on here. I don't think we went with evergreens on this side.
Okay. Are they native?
Yes, there are. I believe they're red maples and sugar maples on that side.
Okay.
Yeah, everything we're proposing for planting is native.
Not ginkgo?
No ginkgo.
Okay. I don't know why people do that. And then it looks so. Then it also the entry road, it just looks like you need a little more swing for a tractor trailer.
Yeah. So what we did here is, if you recall, let's see.
Yeah, we talked about that corner quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, actually, it's not for the tractor trailers that we need the swing. It's okay. Right now, the way this facility works is the delivery vans actually drive into the building and load in here, and then they come out and drive through this way.
Okay.
So what we actually did is we pushed this out a little bit to allow the vans a little bit more room to come out. Because if you recall, we originally, up in that corner, we originally had parking on both sides.
Yep. So you don't need as much parking now with the offsite, the sister facility, basically?
Correct. Yep. So when we get to that, I'll show you where we've relocated some of the parking down on that side.
So, Todd, I think we had talked also about a little snow storage in the corner, like that northern corner. You just move your cursor to the left a little bit.
Right there?
And in the corner, like on the outside edge, I thought as well.
I don't think we have any out there anymore.
Okay, because we had talked about covering, I think, some parking spaces or something.
Yeah, we maintained snow storage here, and then graded this such that it comes back onto the pavement, so it won't go in here. What we want to do is any snow melt that comes off hits the pavement first, gets in the catch basins, goes through the sediment removal before it gets into that infiltration basin.
Okay. Then you're going to have the vehicles, the vans enter, load up, and leave. And so, when we have precipitation or, snow, they're going to come in and drip. So are you going to have floor drains now in the facility? Because I don't think that was the plan before. It was really just a big warehouse, and the vehicle access to the interior of the building was not initially planned.
Yeah. So what we have to have, since this facility is on septic, it's not on public sewer. There will be a trench drain at each doorway that will catch that, and those trench drains will be connected to a tight tank, which will have to be pumped.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions on 151? Seeing none, I'll move on. So 153 Taylor Street. Why
don't we take care of the amended order of conditions if we can here first?
Sure.
Would that be reasonable?
Seems reasonable to me.
Amy, would that be the?
It's up to you all. I was just thinking about this, whether or not they don't want to have this amended order of conditions voted just yet until they're sure they're getting the other side, or if they just want to plow ahead.
Okay, I guess we just move along.
But that's up to the applicant, I think, as much as anything else.
All right, go ahead.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure we have a preference one way or the other. I think for ease of the board, just to so I know you have to do paperwork on these, Amy. We can defer it, or we can take care of it right now.
Well, one thing I will say is if you wait for 153, you might wait another 2 or 3 weeks before closing. So I'm
feeling fairly confident you're not voting on 153 tonight.
Yeah.
Especially since I don't even have, we don't have the peer review back, and I don't have the DEP file number. So I know there are procedural things that need to be taken care of before we get there. I think the way I feel about whether or not you choose to vote on this tonight, if you choose to vote on this and it is approved, then if something happens and for some reason 153 doesn't get through either you folks or through planning board and we have to revert back to the original, I would like to believe that's a fairly light lift to go back to the original. But again, that's you're the voting folks on the commission, so that would be more of a decision for you folks.
I know it might be nice to tie it up tonight.
To me, it sounds like we can wait. It doesn't sound like there's any preference or any hurry, and there seems to be more concern just in case to keep it open at this point. That's the sense I'm getting.
From an overall permitting perspective, it's cleaner if they all go through at once.
Yep. And I think it's less work for Amy to write an order of condition. Well, still.
Let's see your sales pitch on
it's less messy to not have to amend an order of conditions.
Well, you have to amend the order of conditions.
Right. Right. So if we keep it open, well, right, I guess we're amending it.
No matter what, you're good.
Amend it another time.
Just continue to the 19th and vote it then.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like keeping it all together makes more sense, you know, because what if some discussion on 153 brings us back to, you know, something here? Let's, you know, keep it open and, yeah, my understanding is yeah, I mean, the projects seem to be interdependent. You just lost a whole slew of parking, so
they are dependent on one another.
Yeah,
as you will see in just a moment, or if you recall the August 19th discussion.
Yep.
Well, why don't we just go ahead with your presentation? With just an idea, thought.
Sure. So 153 Taylor Street, we had a discussion with you folks on, I believe it was August 19th. There's some notes I had written down that were dated August 19th. So it was on or about that date. As you're aware, it's literally right down the private drive from the current 151 Taylor Street site. Here's another aerial photograph of it. For reference, if you're looking at this photograph in the upper right, 151 Taylor is down here. So as you drive onto 153 Taylor, this is the main road into it. From an aerial perspective, again, here's the private drive. Come down, there's a front parking lot, fairly large rear parking lot, quite a bit of support mechanical over on this side. And the building itself, the footprint is right around 100,000 square feet. It's 2 floors, and it's been vacant for quite some time now. We've gone and delineated the wetland resources in and around the site. It was a fairly simple delineation, considering that this site was filled in the early to mid 80s. And there's a fairly sharp slope that comes down off the parking lot, right down and the wetlands are sitting on the toe. So this is a very clean, very simple delineation. I don't know if any of you have gone out and taken a look at that. The flags are, last time I was down there was about a week and a half ago. The flags are still all up, sequentially numbered. We have an A series that basically starts up next to 151 Taylor, runs all the way down along through here, ends at this point. A B series that starts at this area, runs around, ends here, and a C series that starts over here and runs back up and terminates about there. So there's really 3 series of flags. We also took a look at, and we discussed last time, there is a mapped FEMA flood zone on the property. Here's a couple of graphic images that are roughly similar scales. This is the actual FEMA map here. You can see the floodplain extends up through. If you can see these on your screen, it's elevation 226, 226, 226. This cross section is 226 as well. 226 up here. You can start to see a theme develop there. It's a very flat, very large, very broad floodplain with really no velocity gradient through there. Once you take 226 and plot it actually on the survey that was done for the site, it's where these blue lines end up, which are almost dead on where those wetland delineations were done. Our conclusion is that although FEMA had mapped this, we believe they used an older USGS map that had some contours that came up through the site before it was filled. The low point on the site is right in this spot where I have the red dot right now. That's elevation 232.68. That's a little over 6 feet above the floodplain elevation. The existing building that's out there is at elevation 237. That's 11 feet that's above the floodplain. So our conclusion is the entire developed area of 153 Taylor Street, as well as the access drive that leads into it, is not in a floodplain. When we set out to start looking at this portion of the site, we had some design goals that we were trying to achieve. One was to reduce the overall development footprint on the site, especially within the buffer zones. There's obviously the 50 and 100-foot buffer zones on there. The second was to eliminate just what we did at 151 Taylor, take all the pavement and development area out of the 50-foot no disturb and revegetate that area. That's the second design goal we had. Here we remembered the discussion, the lengthy discussion we had about cutting trees at 151 Taylor Street. We decided that we would be best off if we could not cut any trees down here, other than the landscape trees that are in the islands. We wanted to develop a stormwater management system that met or exceeded the current standards. We know it's a we realize it's a redevelopment. Under redevelopment standards in both the Wetlands Protection Act as well as the Mass DEP stormwater standards, there are certain areas where we can just meet it to the extent practical. We didn't really feel it was appropriate to hide behind that. We wanted to make sure that we actually met the standards that applied to this. As you're also aware, we're in an aquifer groundwater protection district as well as being proximate to wetlands here. So we felt that was the right thing to do. This is the site plan that we worked with Amazon and BL companies to develop. What you see in front of you is there are 3 different types of parking spread across this facility. There's some replacement associate employee parking, which was lost from the reconfiguration at 151. We've also incorporated 30 spaces for commuter rail overflow parking, which we'll talk about in just a second. And there's about 600 delivery van spaces. And those spaces are really concentrated in the majority of the parking field. They're a little bit larger. They're 11 by 27 feet instead of the 9 by 18 of a typical passenger car parking space. The other thing that we did manage to do, and this goes back to one of our design goals, and you can see the blue and the orange around the perimeter of this site plan, is we were able to completely remove all the pavement that's currently in the 50-foot buffer zone. So that was about just under 24,000 square feet. That's the areas that you can see in orange. And then we've also removed additional area out of the 100-foot buffer zone. That's about almost an additional 12,000 square feet. Then once you include the areas that are not in buffer zones that we removed development area, we're just over an acre reduction in the development footprint for this proposal than what exists out there today. This is just a graphic that shows where those parking spaces are that I just described. Again, these are the replacement parking spaces for the employees, which was the reason for the need for the sidewalk. There is a current concrete sidewalk up this edge. It terminates right before you turn into 151 Taylor, so we extended it onto the site so there would be safe pedestrian access. These green shaded areas are, as I mentioned, a commuter area for commuter rail overflow parking. We heard when we originally permitted the 151 site through the planning board, as well as through some residents of the community, that the commuter rail often, well, we used to often get completely full with passenger cars. I will confess I'm not sure what the status of it is right now as we work our way through COVID issues. But hopefully in the future it will go back to full utilization if it already isn't now. And this will provide some overflow parking. We're working with the folks at MBTA to also provide a shuttle that would come down and be able to turn through here. We do have a small shelter right here while the people would wait for the shuttle. And then the blue spaces here are the vans where the delivery vans would park. We also established a drainage strategy. I think a lot of this we talked about at our August 19th discussion. The site is within a Zone 2 wellhead protection district, just like 151 Taylor Street. Because we will be parking the delivery vans down there, this would be classified as fleet storage, so it would be a LUPL, again, just like 151 Taylor Street. We excavated about 16 test pits in our program, and they were remarkably consistent. Fine to medium grain sand. Back. This photograph right here is actually what was coming out of all 16 test pits. The one exception was we did one right off this edge here, right about in here, and we were getting the white sand. If you recall from a long time ago, the presentation we did at 151 Taylor Street, there was an area of white sand that came out where the infiltration basin is. We did find another vein of that. We also thought we might find it over in here because we were hitting some of the more natural soils instead of the fills. But no, we didn't. We also got this same type of soil. So it's remarkably consistent all the way through. The other thing that we noticed there was that we were excavating anywhere from 9 to 12 feet down with the machine that we had. There was zero trace of groundwater. There were no models. There was certainly no standing water. It was just clean all the way down. There were 2 monitoring wells on the property that we opened up. These were not Littleton Water District monitoring wells. They were 2 that were installed right around a fairly large subsurface wastewater disposal system. And one of the wells we measured at 14 feet 0 below ground surface, and the other one was 14 feet 2 inches below ground surface. So, but again, that was in July that we did those. But I think the lack of redox features in the soil was more indicative of no groundwater in at least that top 12 feet. We wanted to pre-treat, we needed to pre-treat any runoff prior to discharge, whether we were going to use a basin, whether we were going to use underground systems. Because we are in a LUPL and because we are in the Zone 2 wellhead protection district, as you know, we need to pre-treat stormwater before we discharge, even into a water quality type system. We have limited areas. So if we think back to this, we have limited areas where we could put above ground infiltration basins or detention basins or basins of any kind. So we were pretty much from day one forced into underground solutions. Today, all the runoff is directed towards these types of units right here. There's no pre-treatment. There's really no water quality treatment. The runoff comes in this pipe, comes down into this dry well and just sits and infiltrates. There's no discharge pipes around this entire site. So this entire site does function today. We did find when we were delineating the wetlands, we found a couple of small places that looks like it may have overtopped occasionally, one in this area and one right down in this area as well. But it looked like it was very infrequent. There was no scour. If I had to assign a storm to it, if you will, I would say it's, maybe on a 25-year storm. But I think the vast majority of stormwater is infiltrated on the site today. And that's what we wanted to do for our future condition. And then we also recognized the opportunity for even more stormwater quality enhancements other than just the pre-treatment. So what we came up with for a treatment train was catch basins that are deep sump and they have hoods, unlike what's out there today. We decided to use hydrodynamic separators because we wanted to get the stormwater underground and into the underground infiltration systems. And then all the stormwater is directed to infiltration systems across the property. Here's just a colored up version of one of the plans that I took out of the design set. This shows both utilities and drainage on here. Utilities down here are very minor. We don't have a building, so there's no sanitary sewer down here. We did run a water line to make sure that we had hydrant coverage throughout the parking lot, just in case there was an emergency. The fire department had to get down there and they needed water. You'll see also this yellow line that comes down through here. This is actually an underground electric line that we're going to continue down the private driveway. We're going to terminate it for now right in a manhole, but the purpose of this is to provide a future connection for electric charging stations. We often get asked by people on boards and communities about Amazon's television commercials that they run. Right now in this area, they do not have electric vehicles. They are on the way. They've asked us to put the potential in there so once they are available in this area, they can put the charging stations in. So that's what this yellow line's for. And then the green that you see scattered about, standard catch basins. Every once in a while, you'll see a dark green dot. That's one of our TSS removal systems. And then these big green boxes are the underground infiltration systems. We've scattered them throughout the site. Instead of just trying to load up one side or the other, we thought it would be better to spread it out. And then, so going back to what we had for original design goals, I think we've achieved all of the goals that we set out to achieve in doing this. So as I mentioned, the proposed layout does reduce, sorry about that. It does reduce the overall development footprint by over an acre, and we're over 35,000 square feet in the buffer zones. We took all the pavement and development area out of the 50-foot buffer zone. We are proposing to revegetate that. We're not going to do any significant grading. It's really just going to be placement of trees as well as some meadow type grasses. And we want those grasses to be the type that really don't require maintenance. We're not trying to turn this into the lawn. We stayed completely within the previous developed areas. We're not cutting any trees around the perimeter of the site. We were able to introduce water quality pretreatment as well as overall water quality measures. And we've provided a stormwater management report that shows that we meet all of the applicable standards in the Massachusetts Stormwater Handbook. When we talked on August 19th, there were two issues that we quite frankly didn't have any answers for at the time. And we told you we would go back and take a look at them. One was thermal impacts, and the other had to do with road salt. So with the thermal impacts, we went back and we took a look at some of the ways we could make sure we were using the right BMPs to handle any increase in temperature. So when you have white roofs or when you have large concrete surfaces, they don't tend to increase the temperature of runoff nearly as much as black pavement. On 153 Taylor Street, we do have a lot of black pavement. It's obvious. So if we were going to capture the runoff, run it through some surface swales, run it into a surface detention basin, one of the things that we found in our research was that that would really not be very effective to mitigate any increase in temperature of the runoff. We took a look at a lot of the research that the University of New Hampshire Stormwater Center has been conducting over many years now. And one of the things that they have found, and I tend to generally agree with it, just with some of the other research that I've done throughout the years, is that one of the things you want to try to do is get the runoff underground as fast as you possibly can. And that means get it into your inlets, get it, if you're going to be using hydrodynamic separators, get it into those quickly, and then get it into the underground infiltration systems. You should try to provide as large of a footprint on those infiltration systems as you can. And again, one of the better strategies is to spread it out, like we've done as well. The other thing that's important to understand here is that we are taking 100% of that runoff and putting it into the ground. So when you get your typical storms during the summertime, when the pavement temperatures tend to be higher than they would in other times of the year, that first ½ inch to an inch of rainfall is very important, because that's really what's being heated up. When you get into the second, third, fourth inch, if you're having the higher intensity storms, the 10-year storms, the 25-year storms, those are a little bit less likely to see the thermal impacts than the first ½ inch to an inch. So you really want to make sure that you're taking care of all that. By adding the increased volume capacity of those systems, you're also providing the higher storms the ability to help run some of that cooler runoff into underground to mix with the warmer runoff that's already been transported into those systems. The other point that I really don't have a way to quantify, but I just want to discuss and point out, is that when we look at the total volume of runoff for a site like this, and we compare it to the total volume of runoff that we're looking at in this aquifer, it's a very, very small volume compared to the aquifer volume. And knowing that we have several feet at least, if not more, to the actual groundwater elevation, there's a lot of potential and a lot of room for these thermal impacts to be mitigated before it gets down into the groundwater. So I think with what we need for a site layout and what we have available to us for BMPs that would be effective, I think we've tried to do what we can as far as mitigating the thermal impacts. The road salt was a little bit more difficult to track anything down, and then we got in touch with I botched his name, and I'm gonna have to apologize for that. Corey from the Littleton Electric Light and Water Department. He's the water quality manager over there, and he provided us with some monitoring data from not only just around the community, but as well as the individual monitoring wells that the water department samples that are located on 153 Taylor Street. They also have a couple on 151 Taylor Street as well. He did say that the town has a lot of various impacts with road salt. It's likely due to Mass DOT. You have a lot of major roadways that run through town that are probably heavily salted by Mass DOT. They've been trying to think about different types of ice melt chemicals. A couple that he pointed out were calcium or magnesium chloride, but those do present other issues with water quality. You either elevate calcium levels, you elevate hardness in water. And quite frankly, with some of the additional research I did, which seems to always point me back at Minnesota DOT, they found the same thing, that the only other chemicals they had been able to find were these two, and that carries their own series of issues. So it seems to come back to having a good handle on what your application rates really are and trying to time it with the storm. So one of the things that we like to suggest, and we're going to work with Amazon on this, is that on both of these properties, not just 153, but this ties into 151 as well. We're going to look at the Mass DOT application rates, make sure that the contracted snow removal companies are not going to be exceeding those application rates. And if there's other policies that have been implemented through the town, whether it's at the recommendation of the Conservation Commission or other town boards, we're willing to listen and take those into consideration. Just as a side note, when you're dealing with snow removal and things like that. Simple sand applications doesn't cut it. Sand provides traction, but it doesn't get rid of the ice. The only other thing that I found in doing some research that helps to get rid of the ice is actually utilized out in Washington and Oregon, and it's cinder from the volcanoes out there. There's a lot of volcano cones out there, and they actually take the cinder, crush it up, apply it to the roads. And I talked to somebody at Oregon DOT, and the way it works out there is because it's volcanic, as soon as the air hits it and the sun hits it, it heats up that material very quickly, melts the snow and ice, eventually gets brushed off to the side of the road, and then DOT crews actually go and pick it up every single spring, and they stockpile it and they reuse it. So it's pretty good material. Unfortunately, there are no volcano cones in New England, so we aren't going to be able to use that type of a material. But I just thought that was interesting and wanted to share that little bit of story. And the folks at Oregon DOT were very nice to tell me how it works. So I thought I'd throw that in there. The rest of the slides here, we have a brief slide that talks about your local wetland bylaw, the performance standards, and then we get into the interests of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act. But I think this would probably be a good time for me to stop talking for a few minutes and listen to questions or comments that you may have on the site plan.
I got a question for you.
Sure.
With that number of commercial vehicles, how come they haven't got some sort of a washing facility to wash them off, run it through or something? I mean, you'd have to have some place to clean the salt and stuff off at some point.
They don't wash their vehicles here. They don't service the vehicles here. They don't fuel the vehicles here. I should put an asterisk on that. If there's an incidental flat tire, yeah, they'll probably change it here. But there's no oil changes. There's no maintenance, tune-ups or anything.
Do they have a service center off-site someplace?
Actually,
this is Michael Kelleher from Amazon. I can into that a little more clarity. Our vans are leased to a third-party vendors who then, as part of that leasing program, they do maintenance and service and washing in a separate location, not on site.
I would think if you were going with the electric vans here, you would be thinking about some sort of solar power or something to charge.
Well, I mean, I can only speak to my past when I was at Nissan putting in charging stations throughout the country, and we would definitely look at doing that when we do the if we do the conduits in the future. But right now, as was stated, we're just putting the conduit in case, or when we do that, when we put in chargers, we can then look at all aspects of how to get the electricity into the electric commercial vans.
Mm-hmm.
Todd, did you look at a parking structure as a possibility? Because that would solve a bit of the salt issue, temperature. I'm also, whereas I, acknowledge that, the development has been pulled back outside of the 50-foot buffer. It is notable that almost 100% of the 50 to 100 is impervious, and we're still talking about just this massive swath of asphalt. And I do recognize Mass DOT is likely the primary contributor. I'm sure that's the case, but it doesn't mean that the aquifer in this sensitive area in this zone 2 can just take more because it's, some supposedly incidental amount more. I mean, we know we have the Blandings turtle in the area. I mean, you said the soils and the geology beneath the site, it's a, uniform sand, so it's going to be pretty well drained. I just feel as though, a parking structure could solve some of this issue and get, more vehicles undercover, and perhaps, and I do think some of the vegetated areas within that were shown on the aerials earlier, one of them was not an insignificant vegetated area, and the usage of the site is changing significantly. The LUPL, again, is the, higher pollutant load. That's a portion of what that acronym means. So I'm just curious if you looked at a structure.
We did. We actually looked at, well, I was going to look at 3 types of structures, but I stopped after the second one. So we looked at doing carports, solar carports, and we also looked at decked parking. And the third one that I was going to look at was just a full-scale parking garage. But once we got to the decked parking and saw where that pricing was coming in, I didn't go to the full-scale parking garage because that's even more expensive. So when we look at these, some general, just to understand the pricing on these, an open parking lot like this, you typically is about $2,000 a space, and that's just your that covers your pavement and your gravels and minor grading. Really doesn't cover utilities, stormwater, or anything like that. So I think we can, by knowing that, we can kind of compare apples to apples. Also, the van spaces are a little bit larger. The van spaces actually take up a little bit more space. But at $2,000 a parking space, when we consider both the van spaces and the car spaces, we're at about $2.5 million just to pave this. When we looked at the carports, those carports tend to run, the numbers I was getting was $20 to $25 per square foot that you actually cover. So I said, well, all right, let's just cover 300 of the van spaces, just half of it, and see what that does. That adds another $2 million to the $2.5 million parking lot, and that's only covering half. And then we also looked at decked parking. Decked parking, once you start getting to structured parking, your cost per parking space actually starts to climb very quickly. So, for example, a decked parking lot is usually somewhere between $12,000 and $15,000 per space. And those are the ones, if you think of, basically just, they're just layers of concrete decks. They don't have enclosed walls or anything like that. They're not formal parking garages. When you get into a parking garage, when you're above ground, you're probably in the range of $30,000 to $35,000 per parking space. And yeah, I'm sure you don't see them in Littleton. We see them occasionally in Boston when you have to go underground with the parking spaces. Now you're up around $70,000 per parking space. So those costs climb very quickly. Like I said, I stopped at the deck parking. I said, well, if we do 300 van spaces on a deck, which basically cuts the van footprint about in half, that adds $7.8 million to the price of this development. At that point, it just is way beyond what we can control and what would be feasible for this.
So wouldn't the carport parking potentially help with the electric bill if that's the direction Amazon's heading by putting solar panels on top?
Well, I think, as Michael mentioned, is that when and if the electric vehicles come to this area and specifically to this site, that's something that could be looked at that point. Because you're right, those two items may go hand in hand. And our office does a lot of work with solar projects, large-scale solar projects, and the way that solar is evolving, which is very, very rapidly becoming much more efficient. That might be a spectacular idea when those electric vehicles come. But that's a decision they'll make when that happens.
What's the timeline on the electric vehicles?
I'm going to punt. Hopefully Michael's still on the phone.
Yeah, I'm here. We don't have a timeline. I'm not an expert on the solar plan or electrical plan, but I would say it's at least 3 to 5 years out, depending on how, because we've got to get our third-party partners to be able to supply these vans, and then if you can imagine the numbers that they're at, it's a big number, and we have to make sure that it's tested out first properly, and then expanded out within the country. So I would, I'm not an expert, but I would guess it's a 3 to 5 year horizon.
And Julie, what I'd be willing to do is, since I know that this is, I believe it was you that brought this issue up last time in August. I know we're not looking at a vote tonight. No, we're not looking at closing this. What I can do is I can work with Northbridge's contractors and firm up those numbers. Just so I'm not throwing out these, metric type numbers at you well, it's about $15,000 a space. So we can actually get a pretty good number on what that deck would cost. So we have that relative comparison.
What about the other building? I mean, there's a solar on the roof there, wouldn't that? I mean, they must kind of use a horrendous amount of power at some point to run their operation there.
Up at 150
go hand in hand.
Well, the footprint of that building, it's about 140,000 square feet. You might get some trade-off there, but it certainly wouldn't operate the entire building.
It's just food for thought, that's all.
Nope, understood.
Hey, Todd, and I guess one thing too for you to understand, we've found, trying to implement a BMP for, like a landscaping company to apply the proper amount of salt. It's just very problematic. I've had plenty of, my office building is a perfect example. It's in Concord. It drains directly into a wetland. I don't know if you've dealt with Concord at all, but they're certainly pretty. And our parking lot, despite signs, despite BMPs, despite our facilities folks being very, very on top of it, our parking lot, it just sparkles. It's a crazy amount of salt. So I just, and I've seen it time and time again, I just don't have a whole lot of faith in saying, oh, well, we'll just deal with it with a BMP and O&M and...
Well, yeah, no, I agree.
It's reality. It's just not. And this is our zone 2 aquifer. This is a sensitive area.
I'd love to tell you that this is the first time this has ever been brought up on projects, but it's not. I mean, we're in New England, and I completely understand what you say. I look out the windows at my office in Boston, and the roads are white. After that first snowfall, it's unbelievable, and it's not white because they left the snow on the ground. There are other things that can be done. I don't know if brining is done frequently in and around Littleton. I live in New Hampshire. When we have snow and ice storms that are coming through, the night before those storms hit, as soon as I cross the border out of Massachusetts into New Hampshire, it looks like somebody striped the road. They pre-brine everything in New Hampshire. I think they're doing it in Maine, and I know they're also doing it in Vermont. And I know that helps a little bit because that tends to cut things down. Where I've been having a problem on other projects having that type of program implemented is that practice just isn't happening in your area yet. I've been successful on one project in Haverhill to have that implemented. Only because I think they use a contractor that may come right out of New Hampshire. It's right on the border up there. So I'm just not sure if those opportunities do exist in and around Littleton, if anybody has ever explored them. Like I said, I'm open to any and all suggestions about it. We get this comment quite frequently from various commissions and boards throughout the Commonwealth. It's not. I wish it was a small problem. It's not. So.
I've seen the state go around with some sort of liquid they're putting out on the roadway, and I've also seen Littleton think they just put straight salt out.
Yeah,
storm.
it might be the early start of trying to implement a brine measure. I know, like New Hampshire DOT, their brine solution, they claim they use about a quarter the amount of salt, because what it does is it actually puts a thin film on top of the pavement. So when the snow and ice starts coming down, it doesn't stick to the pavement. The plows come through and they actually pick it right up instead of just kind of smearing it and making the ice thicker. And they claim it cuts down dramatically. But again, I think you're right, Julie. I think a lot of it has to do with trying to educate the snow removal contractors and the various companies that do it. As you know, a lot of landscape companies revert over to snow plowing all winter long. So it's trying to educate them on that and get that to work.
But going over, putting up some sort of a shelf over your parking seems like it would help alleviate some of your snow removal costs too.
Well, it might. That goes back to that carport idea, right? Is that kind of where you're headed? So a lot of those carports, they'll cover the parking spaces. So you still have to do something with the drive aisles, but you're right, it does cover quite a bit of the area. But right now, without the rest of the program, I don't see it as a practical alternative just yet.
And then we had talked too before about just the inevitable trash that, like, you open your car door on a windy day and, like, whoops, there goes a bunch of stuff that's not retrievable.
So one of we looked at doing a couple of different things up at 151. We put in the short chain link fence. What we try to do here also is on this back side, I've got a fairly dense row of evergreens. I think they start about here and wrap right around through here. And they're staggered, so you don't just have a single row coming through there. I think as those grow, that'll help trap some of it. We can look at the idea of fencing again. There's a site that we're working on in another community where we have the wood guardrail, but at the back side of the guardrail, we put in a chain link mesh. And if you put a black vinyl coated chain link mesh on the back side of that guardrail, it just kind of disappears into the background a little bit. So it's not quite the eyesore. But that lower level trash that's blowing around would help trap it. When I was out delineating, I myself am the one who did the wetland flags. I did notice this end of the site right through here. There was a lot of trash coming off of that embankment. These areas weren't so bad, but this end there was a significant amount.
Might depend on your prevailing winds too, which way it's blowing.
Well, if I had to pick one way over the other, I would definitely say on this slide that you have in front of you, it goes from right to left.
The other
based on what I saw out there.
Putting a chain link fence along there might help you with your turtle problem.
Well, we are going to have to do the, we've proposed the same turtle protection plan to Natural Heritage. So concurrently, when we filed the notice of intent with you folks and with the copy to Mass DEP, we sent it to Natural Heritage for review as well. So we are waiting back to hear on that. But it's considering it's the same population in the same area and the same resources as the prior project, I would expect we'll be able to work with them in a very similar manner. But you're right, the short chain link fence certainly helps. The turtles don't tend to climb up over that.
So it kind of seems like you've heard your talk and we can't vote on any of it due to the fact you haven't got a number.
No numbers yet.
Number. And you're going to research some stuff anyway, so maybe we should move along in your schedule coming up.
Yeah, I'll get you some pricing. It should take me about a week to get that. I'm hoping we get the number fairly soon, and I'm assuming that you're going to want to see the results of the peer review as well. The planning board had that started. I believe it started about a week and a half ago. So it's Green International. They're working their way through it. Oh, and I should have mentioned this up front, just so you're aware, in case you weren't already aware. We will be with the planning board on October 1st, Thursday evening. And what we're going to do is we've requested an amended site plan approval for 151 Taylor Street, as well as special permits. And those amendments would wrap in 153. So that all goes as one big, large permit. And not that this falls under your jurisdiction, but the plan is that once those are approved, the real estate closing happens. Northbridge then owns both parcels, 151 and 153, and a lot merger occurs. So they become essentially one parcel. So it's one parcel, one project at the end of all of this with one owner.
Hey, Todd, this is Carl. Are you anticipating a lot of your employees will be using the T on the train set? Is that why you're going to be having the van going back and forth? And
no, actually, that really wasn't. That's not for Amazon employees at all. That was done at the request of the planning board. So when we went through the planning board last time on 151, Carl, they asked for some commuter rail spaces because there is such a, I guess there's a tremendous overflow. And I've been by there a couple of times pre-COVID, and I did notice that the parking lot appeared to be, for the most part, full. So I certainly don't dispute that. The problem we had when we were designing and permitting 151 was that we maxed out the parking on the zoning code. So we really didn't have any spaces to give. As soon as we started talking to town staff about making the change to Amazon, then incorporating this, one of the first requests that came out was, can we get some commuter rail parking? So we worked with them to put those in. So that's really what that's for. So that's, I don't know if you take the train to Boston, or if you do, you can park down there and there'll be a shuttle. Yeah. The MBTA will coordinate to come get you. So that's what that's really all about down there.
How will you handle security? I mean, it's not Amazon employees or anything.
How is security handled at the MBTA station?
Yeah, but that's down there. That's not next to your regular commercial.
No, understood. Oh, you mean as far as having folks just kind of come out in through here? There'll be signage that just directs various people to where they need to park. Other than that, we're not looking at any barbed wire gates or fences or anything like that at this point.
Mm-hmm.
There will be lighting down there.
Trash. Kidding.
We'll put trash receptacles here. But back to the security. There is full site lighting down here. We want to make sure it's lit and it's safe.
Great. Okay. So from a habitat standpoint, is it going to be lit all night?
I believe it's lit throughout the evening. Yeah. But we're zeros right at the edges. So I know they still look up and they can see it.
Do the employees at Amazon work 24 hours a day? I mean, the vans and stuff. You see them out at all hours of the day.
James, what our employees do is there's different shifts starting around midnight or 10 o'clock. They start working, receiving packages from the tractor trailers that come in. They work basically overnight shift, and then another shift comes in during the early morning hours. And then goes quiet during the day when the vans are out packing or out delivering, and then it gets active again when the vans return. And it's a cycle. It's a 24-hour cycle, but there are definitely quiet times throughout the day.
Okay. I guess we've got to move along. Has anybody else got any more questions for now? And
one other thing I'd possibly throw out, and I don't know if this would even work, if you're concerned about the salting, I don't know if it could be part of the O&M, that there'll be an annual training or whatever for whoever the contractor is, or pre-season or something like that.
Yeah, and I was thinking about the monitoring wells that exist could be put to use too, but let's see if there's some.
Yeah, I think I would assume they read those regularly. I received via email one of the readouts. I think it was from the well that's right here. So he did mention that this was not one of the hot spots in the community, but I mean, it is right at the intersection of 495 and Route 2. So it has the potential. That's for sure. I see that.
yeah, but it's already been existing parking lot, so it probably has been salted and sanded in the past years, I would think. Nobody wants the liability of somebody slipping and falling.
That's true.
That's where it all comes down to.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, Julie, to your point, the 4 monitoring wells are all generally in this area here. They're actively tested by the water department. So,
do you know which way is down gradient?
That's what I was just gonna ask.
I can find out.
Okay.
I imagine if they install them on that side of the site, that it must move that way.
Yeah, let me. Do I have a
theory?
Yeah. Let me see if I got an overall here. Yes. So the ones at 153 Taylor are down in this location here. There's a couple at 151 that are here. So I would assume that means they're looking at it going this way. But I'm not going to say that with 100% confidence. So, but I can certainly find out.
And Todd, did you use, so it looked like in some of the slides, you said you used, the required stormwater, Massachusetts required stormwater standard. But then a few slides later, you mentioned the Cornell numbers. And so those are 2 different standards. So I was just curious which one you were using.
For the runoff calculations, we used Cornell.
Okay.
The standards that I was referring to are the 10 standards.
Okay.
So, yeah, not the
looking at their report right now.
Okay.
What's that?
I was just saying, I'm looking at the report right now, and they do have tables of the storms and what rainfall data they use. It's all based on the Cornell.
Okay. Thank you.
Wow.
So on my to-do list, I have cost for parking deck and the carports. That's a little bit more definitive than the metric, as well as do some research on the direction of groundwater flow, which I'll contact the water folks and see what they have for information on that. Hopefully by the next time we talk, we'll have a DEP file number, and I will have the results of the peer review in hand, if not mostly resolved, but it depends on what their comments are.
And whatever the planning board decides.
And whatever the planning board decides, that's great. But hopefully we know that on Thursday. So I think we're with them at 7:45 Thursday evening.
Okay, we got to move on. We got still 1 or 2 more hearings to do.
So continue to October 19th.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Discussion. 628. Thank you for coming in.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Hello.
Hi. Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, hi. So I didn't know this was gonna. I mean, I've been waiting since 9:45. So, um, anyway, so I wanted to talk about. I mean, initially I wanted to put up a shed in the back of my in my backyard, but I'm not gonna do it this year. I'm also decided it's not practical to put it where I said I'd put it, because I'd have to wade through like knee deep snow to get to a snowplow or something. I mean, or a snow blower. So I'm going to move it around. So I'll do it next year. But the one thing I want to talk about today was about paving my driveway, really. And I talked to you people, all of you, I think like a year and a half ago, because I have a gravel driveway, and we've had a snowplow come in and go during the winter time. And now that, I mean, most of the gravel is gone and the driveway is actually sinking. So I don't know if it's going to hold out for one more winter. So I was looking at putting in paving the driveway with permeable pavers. So I've sent some pictures of the pavers that I plan to use, and I've sent the specifications of that. I didn't know that I needed to bring in a civil engineer to talk about this, and so when I found out on Thursday, I called some people in the area, and they're all heavily backed up by months, so no one was willing to come and talk to you today about that. But I can show you the pictures I have of the stones that we plan to use for paving the driveway, and I also have some snapshots of the specifications. Let me see if I can share my screen with you. And also that I don't have like a presentation slide like the previous person. So let me see if I can share my screen. Google Chrome would like to record this. Yeah. Okay. Oh, for crying out loud.
I think the commission knows what the pavers look like.
Okay, so what, I'm not sure what to say. Like, so the one question that came up was the last time I talked to you, I talked about putting in what was called porous concrete, but I couldn't find any contractor willing to guarantee it. But the one question that I was asked, and I remember this, was we would have a truck delivering propane to the house, and there was I don't know who it was that asked me this question. It was a long time ago, but they want to know if that permeable concrete would be able to withstand the weight of the truck. But because now I'm not going to do that, I'm going to use these really heavy stones. Like each of those weighs like about like 5 to 7 pounds or something. So, and there's going to be spaces in between those stones, and I'll put, and my contractor tells me that he will put like fine gravel between that. And I've seen videos on YouTube about how they do that, so the water seeps directly between those stones and into the ground, so there will be no runoff into the creek that goes around our house. That much I can tell you, and I sent the specifications to you about how much load each of the stones can withstand, how many pounds per square inch pressure and such. So see, I'm like sitting in the dark over here. Yeah, so I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have, or I don't I mean, I would really like to do this before before it starts snowing, but the way things are, it doesn't look like it's going to happen. And I spoke to somebody at AIR, and he said the earliest he could send someone to even look at the site is a month. So I'm really like up the river without a paddle right now. So what do you suggest I do?
So I remember you and your wife, I think, attending the meeting.
Yeah.
I think that the propane truck question has Jim's name written all over it. I do recall him asking that.
Yeah.
And I recall at that meeting, we looked favorably upon the pervious, pervious pavement, pervious concrete, some sort of solution. I'm very familiar with your driveway. I've stood in it for quite some time for various reasons. And I do think it's problematic if the plow is just plowing the gravel off your driveway. I think the challenge is, I'm not an engineer. And so we're tasked with protecting the resource and, getting information, from an engineer to say, yes, this is a good, this application for this driveway, is something that makes sense. And so that's really why, especially when you say your driveway is sinking, that, kind of concerns me a little bit. So I'm not really sure. I don't know what the rest of the commission thinks. I'm not really sure which direction to head. In general, we did already have this conversation about pervious, and so we had gotten to that point in the past, but to bless a certain, a certain technology without, having an engineer.
No, so what I've got to do, what I have is like, I've looked this up. There are videos on YouTube about how they do this so that, the water seeps in between the stones. And so these are like, they don't really go cheek to jowl kind of. So they have like ridges on their sides. So there are gaps between them when they are set. And so they basically, they dig like, I don't know, I think it's like a 6 to 9 inch deep stretch on the driveway, and then they put like coarse gravel at the bottom, and then that's a layer, and then they put like medium sized gravel on top, and then they even it out, and then they put these stones on top, and then I think it would take like 5 to 7 days for them to actually do this whole process. They even put like a tube that helps to drain off the excess water, and so I just have that to go with really. But the thing about the permeable concrete is that what they say is when in the winter time, or if there is water collects under that, and then in the winter it freezes over, so it actually cracks up it cracks up on the surface, and so no contractor was willing to guarantee it for more than 1 year. And given that the estimates for putting that together were like $15,000 to $20,000, they basically said you're just better off putting an extra layer of gravel on your driveway like every year rather than going to all this trouble to get the approval and getting it to do it for you, which is why I went to the permeable pavers thing. So I actually got the samples from the people in Lunenburg. There's a big outlet over there, and then I send the pictures along. So let me see if I can show you those pictures.
I think it's going to depend an awful lot what kind of a base is under the driveway now.
Yeah, so there are multiple layers of gravel that come under this so that it holds it in place, and then they put like the siding which is made out of iron so the stones don't move around or anything. So but unfortunately, if I'd known that I needed a civil engineer to come and tell you about this, and but then because of COVID, they are backed up by months. And he actually told me that your conservation people should know, they probably know that our civil engineering projects are like delayed by months because of COVID and everything. So it's just a little late in the day for me, I guess. I just had no idea I needed someone like a civil engineer to come and testify. Let me see if I can.
So much that you need a civil engineer to come to a meeting. I understand you're looking for direction now. If this is reasonable, you will need to file a permit with plans and the engineering design and calculations.
Yeah, it's the calculations that
50-foot no disturb too.
Say that again, please. I didn't hear that last bit. You want a civil engineer to prepare a full plan for the driveway, and then I need to submit it to you. Is that what you said?
Yeah. So
you went on to mute, Kyle.
Sorry, I was on the wrong screen. I'm looking at the plans, the specs that you provided, and so it gives you infiltration rates and everything.
Mm-hmm.
We just looking at that, I can't tell you that. They're all different. I can't tell you which one's appropriate for your driveway based on.
So I mean,
the amount of rainfall your driveway's going to see.
So we picked up samples, and they come in different colors and everything. So all of these stones are permeable pavers, but I plan to use the thickest one that's available over there, simply because I don't want the stone. I mean, the one that has the highest the capability to withstand the greatest pressure. So about the propane truck running over it, that's the one I'm most likely going to use. And these come in different colors, and there's a choice out there. So I just wanted to show you all the stones that I have to choose from. So I'm going to choose between these three, but I'll choose the one that can withstand the most pressure, the toughest one of them, so to speak.
Did the supplier provide you with any information like that? Because I'm going through, and it gives you, there's like nice little pictures on what they can withstand, and I'm seeing vehicles like cars, but I'm not seeing delivery trucks or anything like that. So
they gave us a booklet, and this is the thing. If I'd come into the meeting personally, I would share the thick booklets that they give you. And so there are 3 different categories for these: one for residential driveways, and one for industrial driveways, and one for like roads, right? So this one, all the 3 of them, and I think I have I took screenshots of that with my cell phone camera, and the 3 stones that I've selected, they're all good for residential driveways, so they can take a light truck on that and regular passenger cars on them and everything.
I think you're dealing with a truck. I saw the propane truck.
Propane truck.
Probably dealing with a truck fully loaded that's going to be in the 40,000 pound weight.
Yeah. So in a residential driveway, all the 3 of them are good for residential driveways. One of them is good for an industrial driveway or a factory driveway. So I'll use that. I don't mind. I mean, the cost comes out to be the same no matter what stone I use. Okay. So, I mean, I have an estimate for the cost actually from the contractor. I'm just going about this completely backwards. Or basically stumbling through this, if you know what I mean. So I don't know if your next meeting is on the 19th. It might be too late, and I don't know if you're going to vote on that same day. It might be the next meeting. So I really don't know what to do. But I can bring along a contract. I'll make a few more phone calls and see if somebody's available between now and your next meeting. And if that works out, I guess.
And it's the commission should chime in. It's not necessarily the contractor that they would need to hear from. It would be an engineer who's going to.
No, I'm sorry. I meant to say engineer. I'm sorry, not the contractor. What? You asked for an engineer because a contractor is ready. I can bring in a contractor anytime, but the engineers are harder to get.
To prepare plans that would show what the limit of work is, what's going to happen to the old gravel, what the sub base underneath your 9 inches is like, if the infiltration is enough, if there's going to be runoff, if they need a under drain pipe. So all that needs to be in a formal permit application.
All right.
That sound right to the commissioners?
Yeah, it sounds right.
All right. So you want a full statement of work with the diagrams and explanations. Okay, fine. I'll get it. I mean, if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. I'll go do it.
Okay.
But the commission in general is amenable to impervious pavers there. Let's start with that one.
Yeah, I am. We talked. Okay. I personally am, because we had a fairly thorough conversation about this maybe a year ago or something like that. But
yeah, this was 2 summers ago actually, and we put it off for 1 year because it's first of all, we were all gung-ho about the permeable concrete, and then the contractor came back to us and said, well, it's going to last a year, and then and so we just put it off last summer. And so this summer it's been like where I got sick and all that, so it's a long story. So anyway,
it's been a year.
Yeah, sorry,
it's been a year, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's been more than a year actually. Yeah.
The other thing you want to look at, if you're bouncing off the DP file thing, has that been closed out, or is it pretty near ready to get closed out?
I'm sorry, what?
The certificate of compliance on the existing permit that you have.
Oh yeah, so that was a dead end because I never heard back from that person. I wrote him at least 2 more times. You put me in touch with him and he never responded. So that's a complete dead end for me. I mean, and then that shed actually, like in the plan that I submitted, I thought it would be nice to put it at the rear of my backyard, and then I realized it was not practical at all, you know. So I decided. Sorry. Say that again. Sorry.
This file number was only good for 3 years.
Oh.
It had to be renewed.
Okay, so I don't know when they filed it. The builders never even told us anything about the certificate of compliance not being there. Until Amy told me about it, I wasn't even aware of it. So, so I need to. I don't know who to talk to about this even, because there was an engineering company on that schema, and then I contacted them, and they're not there anymore.
Straighten it all out that way. But
sorry.
You're going to need to have a whole new notice of intent, wouldn't you, Amy?
For the driveway, yes.
Yeah.
I need a what for the driveway?
It's the new permit for the driveway.
Oh, I need a new permit for the driveway.
Right, that's what we're saying. You need the full permit application.
Oh yeah, I'll put a yes. So I haven't put in a formal application for the driveway so far, but I'll do it. The application I put in was for the shed actually, for a tool shed. So I'll put it in.
That was with the building department, not with the Conservation Commission. The actual application, but I would assume the commissioner would want you to clean up the old permit first with a certificate of compliance. And if
who do I talk to? I don't know who to talk to even about this.
If John Field is not in the business anymore, you're going to have to find another civil engineer to do it. Now, I don't know what kind of agreement you may have had with the seller.
No, the seller sold the house and that's it. He was even going to remove the tarp in front of our house and he never came back. I'm still pulling them out by hand. So, you know, I guess we got stiffed on that end of the deal. You know, and I wasn't even aware of the certificate of compliance thing. I'll see if I can get in touch with the man and see if he can help out in any way. So every 3 years, I need to get a new certificate of compliance. Is that how this works?
Yes.
Well, no, just for your original permit. Just for that original permit, it needs to get closed out by a certificate of compliance once all the work has been completed. So that's what needs to happen.
I believe they did that and then they didn't get it and then just sold the bloody house and moved on.
Yeah, how did they leave that up to the homeowner to have to get a? I mean, I wasn't involved with this project, but Amy, how is that on the homeowner?
I didn't even know this kind of look. I'm not a builder. I just said, hey, I like the house. I'll buy it. You know.
It's usually something that the attorneys pick up when they do, because it is recorded on your deed. So that often it'll either be a financial difference in the price, or they have an agreement that they will get that they have to get the certificate of compliance. But that's something for the lawyers. It's not the commission's deal.
Okay, we got to talk to Roseman about this. Okay, all right, fine. I'll figure a way out.
And then the new permit would also need a certificate of compliance. So like you would do the application for the driveway, that's a separate permit. And then that will need a certificate of compliance, but it's just per permit. It's not every 3 years. It's just when you're done, you need it closed out.
Okay. So let's see if I get this straight. Okay. So my head is spinning here. So I get a certificate of compliance for the house, and then I put in a permit for the driveway, and I get a second certificate of compliance for that.
When the driveway
is done.
But the driveway is completed.
Yep.
Okay, fine. All right, fine. I'll get cracking on it. Well, anyway, I appreciate your time. Okay, and yeah, I should have been more careful, I guess. I don't know. I'll check and I'll get back to you. Hopefully next time. Maybe I'll find a civil engineer. Who knows? So.
They are all very busy right now. There's a lot of home improvement going on, so it's hard to find somebody.
Yeah, I know. Maybe I'll just dump a ton of gravel on the driveway and hopefully it lasts the winter. So
that might be.
Don't do that.
Don't do that?
Oh, actually, no, never mind. You can maintain your driveway. Sorry.
Yeah, but I'm going to lose my driveway, and then one day my car's going to be stuck between the bridge and my house, and someone's got to come and haul it out for me. So,
yeah.
The way it's going. So, yeah. Anyway, I appreciate your time.
We gotta move on. We've got other.
Yeah, thanks for.
Sorry, I mean, that man took an hour. I didn't expect to be waiting behind Amazon.com. So.
Yeah, thanks for hanging with us.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Hey, bye.
Have a good night.
You too.
That's it, I think.
Oh, I had one. Oh, Kyoto's there. Yeah, that's the bottom of the list here.
Yeah, they continued to the 19th.
Quick note. I think this developer was the same one that developed that property over off of Boxborough Depot Road where the woman came in and she only had a couple inches of blacktop.
Yeah, it's at that 1000 LLC, he calls himself.
Yeah. Okay, I guess I'm open to the...
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Good job.
All right.